Well, hello. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good middle of the night, good yesterday, good tomorrow, all that kind of stuff. We're in 2025, apparently. So they say. It's the 2nd of January, 2025. And this is show number 70. We're with you for the next couple of hours here on WBN. Welcome to the show. And tonight's big challenge is, can any of you remember anything that happened last year? Like anything? Surely something. I can't remember anything. What happened last year? I can barely remember what happened over the last 10 days, except I've been coughing a lot. I was talking about this. Actually, I was coughing about it throughout the day, to be quite honest. I'm just about past all that lurgy stuff. And I've had some messages in from other types here. David sent me a few messages over Telegram saying he's got the lurgy or something. So if you've had the lurgy, welcome to the Lurgy Club. This is the 12th day of lurgy, my true love said to me. Time for more medicine with your tea, or something like that. So sorry about that. That was a bad way to start things off, wasn't it? But I hope you've all had a smashing, whatever that might mean, Christmas and New Year's recharging period. I can't say I have, but I'm really rather pleased that I'm past the worst of all that sort of nonsense. Had lots of positive little messages coming through. This is a good thing. You know what it's like. It's supposed to boost and beef up your immune system and make you strong and tough and mighty for the year ahead, which I suspect we might need as much strongness and toughness and mightiness as we can get. And we're a bit of a packed house tonight. It's absolutely swamped here in the studio because I've invited a couple of additional reprobates along. Mr. Mallificus Scott is here with us, along with Patrick and with Mr. Von Essex and Paul, and of course my good self. So without further ado, let me welcome all of them into the show. And because you're a guest, Mallificus, because you're here and you've not been here for a little while, welcome to the show. Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year to you. It's so nice to be classed as a reprobate. I love it.
Do you?
Thank you. That's my first accolade for 2025.
Good.
Reprobate. Mallificus Scott, reprobate. I'm happy with that. Yeah,
That's
it's
good.
lovely to be here. Thank you.
It's good to have you. And did you have a recharging good sort of Christmas break? And did Santa bring you your new socks and underwear? Did everything go according to plan?
I was a bit ill. Either side of Christmas.
Good.
Rather like everyone is this time. And you know what? I work outside. I'm supposed to have a very strong immune system, but I suppose I rub shoulders with a lot of people that don't work outside and don't have strong immune systems, and they go and mutate these things into things that my body wasn't quite prepared for. So yeah, every so often I do get a bit ill. So Christmas has been no exception, but I have actually had a very relaxing time. I finished work on the 21st, and I go back tomorrow, sadly.
Wow.
And the temperature's just dropped, actually. The temperature's just dropped. I've just been out to my van outside, and there is a nice layer of ice across the windscreen. So, yay, I'm going back into that tomorrow. And I think my boots are still wet.
No. Oh, no, you don't want wet boots. There's nothing worse. Yesterday absolutely tipped it down here. It was obviously, New Year's Day is usually the day of the Great Walk up and down the coast here. If you go out on a New Year's Day, it's usually packed. It wasn't yesterday. I don't think there was anybody around at all. Everybody was just in, avoiding lashings of rain and all this blustery wind and stuff. But today has been beautiful. Very cold. I don't really mind the cold. Very, very cold. I took my my mid-afternoon sojourn up and down the coast here today, avoiding all the dogs. There's loads of them around, but everybody seemed quite chirpy and happy, which was nice. It really was, actually. And so I didn't go on my usually men's walk because I'm still sort of slightly hacking and coughing. I'll be hitting the mute button every now and again, everybody, just to let you know, just to avoid the worst of the coughs. They're still there. But I'm about 98% through this nonsense, which is good. So a refreshing walk in the blazing sunshine was beautiful today. You can't, because as Eric has been mentioning it these past few weeks, England has just been nothing but grey. Has it been nothing but grey down your neck of the woods too, Mallificus? What's the weather been like?
We had a complete whiteout for Christmas, and I'm not talking snow. I mean, literally, you couldn't see about 200 yards down the road.
Really?
It's been really, really low cloud. Yeah, just ridiculous.
Wow.
It's the whitest Christmas we've had down here in living memory, I think, because you don't get snow down here very often. Normally, it's February when we do. So, yeah,
Wow.
whitest Christmas in living memory, but not down to snow. We literally just had fog for the whole Christmas week.
Did you? Wow, thrilling.
Yeah.
Nice. That's really, really good.
Hey,
good.
Paul, I have a question.
Hey, Patrick, welcome to the show. How are things in Wisconsin?
They're going quite well. It's sunny out right now.
Oh, nice.
It's a bit chilly, but
Yeah.
Shelley has joined our conversation, I think. Are you able to bring her into StreamYard?
I can't see her.
Oh, okay. She says she's in. I might be able to.
She's
I might
fibbing.
be able to bring her in too.
She's fibbing. Yeah, don't worry.
Fibbing, okay.
When I see her, I'll add her in. I mean, I think I'm
are
allowed
we limited to the number of people we can have in this?
I don't think so. I thought it was 10. Or am I? We're up to 5 of them. I could always climb out and leave it to you guys. I could just go off and do some coughing for a bit. No, I'm legging it right now. Of course, it's a terrible way to conduct the show. Yeah, I thought she should. Yeah, well, I don't know. I thought we had up to 10 with this particular studio arrangement. Am I wrong? Am I muddled?
Well, Mallificus, you might know a little bit more about StreamYard. Are we limited to 5?
As far as I'm aware, it was limited to 5.
Okay,
but
dear.
you should still be able to see. You should still be able to see Shelley backstage.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Well, I can't at the moment. Gosh.
Type something in the chat, Shelley.
Isn't this fun? Hey, it's good to start off with the technical trousers moment straight off because I haven't got all my ducks in a row. There you go. You assume a little thing. You invite people along. It's like throwing a party and then you close the door on them. So Shelley must be a bit miffed. And I've got to thank her because she sent me some clotted cream, but that's for later in the show. You can hear me. You can hear me eating it. I'm going to go to the fridge and get it out and just start chomping huge quantities of extremely arterial thickening clotted cream. If you're going to thicken your arteries, let's do it properly, eh? Let's not muck about. Okay, well, there appears to be an issue. Oh, hang on, just a minute. Is that somebody lurking down there? I can't. No, it's very difficult for me to see, to be quite honest. Very odd. How about that? I suppose I could leave, but if I leave, I won't be able to see that people are not there. So,
I'll figure something out, Paul.
You might not be able to. You might not be able to figure anything out. Maybe you could bring her in on your feed or something. Could you bring her in on your feed, Patrick?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of doing here.
How clever. That would be fantastic if you do that. I have no idea why she's not showing up. Yeah, or maybe it's just... Whatever. Anyway, welcome to the show, everyone. Now, so that's it, Patrick. You've lost your guest spot. You made it. You could have said something interesting, but unfortunately, we talked about all those technical things, which is terrible, isn't it? Really. Let's hop back to this side of the pond. Eric von Essex. Good evening and welcome to the show, Eric. Greetings. How are you this fine, chilly evening?
I'm jolly because we've had our ration of sun, haven't we? I think we got 2 days rationing of sun.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful day today and no chemtrails. What's happened to them? Are they giving them a break or something? I mean, it's a clear blue sky. I couldn't believe it because did you get a clear blue sky where you are? I mean, is it the same in Wisconsin and places like that?
Yeah.
No chemtrails today?
No.
So
not for Patrick. Patrick's saying, you got sun, Patrick, haven't you?
Nice fluffy clouds. I don't know. I haven't really been outside all that much. I've been inside most of the day, but it's beautiful out right now. I don't see any chemtrails or anything like that, or contrails, however you want to put it. But it's beautiful. Beautiful day.
That lurgy is very, very strange because it seems to have been predominantly where you are, Paul, down on the south coast. It's very strange because uh, quite a few people from that area have had similar symptoms to you. So I'm wondering, could it have been something to do with the mist and fog and the overcast weather that we had for weeks, which I've never known to carry on for so long? I mean, you used to get overcast for a couple of days, but not for weeks on end. It's
No, I guess not.
ridiculous.
I don't know what to make of it, to be quite honest. I guess I've just been so pathetically weak. Seriously, it's just like I've been a lamb. I think I said that last week, but I've had the strength of a lamb, a very small one at that, and would just get blown over by any sort of force in the world. But I've been a lot better the last couple of days, but the cough is still pretty good at times. It's quite good. I can really make it rumble, but I think I'm just about cleaned out of all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for radio transmitters and all this kind of other stuff. I don't want to get my head so confused with things. It was so much easier in the past, wasn't it, Eric? You got a cold and you had it and you just drank lots of lemon juice or stuff like that and it went a particular way. But this certainly hasn't. I've never had anything last as long. 12 days for me is sort of silly. My mum used to say 9 days. She said 9.
That's
3
right.
days coming, 3 days with it, 3 days going. And it's generally about right as a good rule of thumb. But I've still had it rolling on and stuff. But at least I've got my sense of balance back. I actually couldn't stand up. It's been quite a thing, actually. And the thing I really noticed about what appears to be a little thing is it's so disruptive. I know we're only talking about the bloody obvious here right now, but it is very, very disruptive. And if we could give our enemies a permanent cold and headaches, we'd win. You can't get anything done. Have you noticed? It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
It's the most frustrating thing in the world because the mind is willing, but the body isn't.
Yep. Yep, it's
The
true.
mind's
I don't,
perfectly awake, and you've just got all these symptoms holding you back from doing things.
cough, splutter, splutter, cough, 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 splutter. Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't it strange though? That isn't it very, very strange? Now I don't know whether your father mentioned anything about this, but my father, he was in the war for 6 years, full 6 years, and he never ever went down with a cold during those 6 years, and nor did anybody else, because I was outside all the time.
Yeah.
Think
Yeah,
about it.
there's a lot to
Well,
say.
I
They
don't
slept
get 'em.
outside. They were outside. So there must be something about being indoors that gives you colds. It's weird, isn't
Could
it?
be. I don't know. I always find my male prides hurt a little bit. I'm known in the house for not getting ill. My last cold was about 7 years ago. Although, I mean, I had a bit of a sort of runny nose type thing, but I quite enjoy those. Does that make me a bit weird? I don't mind getting a runny nose. It's quite interesting. Of course, you have to invest more in toilet paper and tissues and things like this. And you snivel a bit, but generally not too bad. I found I just couldn't eat any food. I still haven't lost enough weight either. The amount of suffering I've gone through by not eating has not been matched by a commensurate drop in weight. I've dropped some. But I just realised, because I've been relatively inactive for the last 5 or 6 years, and it's all to do with my wife's condition and certain other things, I've been forced into a more sedentary sort of lifestyle, even though I go out and walk regularly to head it off. But I've got used to being slightly more rotund than I ought to be, and I'm not horrifically fat. I'm not Billy Bunter-esque or anything like that. But I still think, you could still do to get a stone off. And even with the lurgy, it's not get rid of all of it. So, Anyway, we'll keep working on all that kind of stuff as well. Shout out, by the way, to everybody in Rumble. That's a good one. Who was that? Who was that one? That was a good little cough. So, shout out to everybody in Rumble. Hope you're all not suffering at all. And I've had a wonderful, healthy time of it. It's good to see you all back here again. I was, as I said early on, any of you know anything about what happened in 2024? I don't know whether my brain's been wiped clean or whatever, but I just couldn't work out if anything had actually happened. I mean, of course it has, and I'm being slightly flippant, but I've not found it possible to really dwell on it or think that it was important at all. And I guess to some degree, I think I mentioned it probably in passing briefly last week, even though the bulk of all this information is now not directly accessible online. But there is this famous, or is it infamous, website called Deagle, DEAGEL.com. And I know, certainly, because I spoke to Andy Hitchcock a little bit earlier this afternoon, this just came up in conversation. We were talking about that one 10 years ago, 12 years ago. when that first came to our attention. Of course, 2025, just to start the show off on a happy and cheery note, is apparently the year of the Great Annihilation. This is when, apparently, according to them, of course, I tend to remember the figures for the UK better than other nations, but they all looked pretty grim. I think the population of the UK by the end of this year is supposed to plunge, I think that would be the right word, plunge down to a mere 17 million people out of a current whatever it may be. But I don't see the point in getting too wound up about all that kind of stuff, because there's not much really that we could do about it if it's true. Maybe this little sort of flurry of lurgy has been, cough, cough, part of the whole process. Have you chaps had any time momentarily to dwell upon such sobering facts and statistics? Any thoughts on that one?
It's funny. I was going through all my old quick links. Just scroll. I've got many quick links on my little Opera browser, and one of the ones that the mouse settled upon was the Deagle thing. And I thought, wow, I haven't actually seen that site for ages. And I clicked on it. And of course, now you can't, as far as I'm aware, I poked around. I couldn't find anything about projections for populations and all that kind of thing. But it all used to be there for sure. And it got me thinking, wow, yeah, this is that year, isn't it? This is that year. This is why nothing happened in 2024. They're lulling us into a false sense of security.
Yeah, well, maybe, I guess. I don't really know. I think they keep changing their plans all the time. You never know with all this kind of stuff. I mean, there seems to be a bombardment of madness. Didn't a Tesla truck explode or something yesterday? Did something go on with anybody seen that one?
Over in Las Vegas?
Was it? It was outside a Trump Hotel.
Trump Hotel?
Yep. Okay. Vegas, was it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And then it was some sort of military guy from Special Forces that got done blown up with his truck, his Tesla truck.
Right.
It's odd circumstances. And then there was another one of these type of cars going out of control and killing 10 people down in New Orleans, Louisiana, and around the same time. And another coincidence, it also happened to be a military person that was behind the wheel, or maybe not in control. And these things are computerized these days. All of these cars, these newer cars, have remote control capability or driverless capability. So who knows what's going on? There's crazy stuff. But by the way, I've got Shelley with us. Shelley, can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Oh, Shelley.
Hey,
Shelley. That's wonderful. That's fantastic.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening.
I'm sorry
boys.
you couldn't get in. Is it what's actually happening? Are you knocking on the door and it won't let you in? Is that what's occurring?
Yeah,
Well, I think-
it just keeps saying I'm backstage. I shouldn't have told Mallificus, should I? If I didn't message him, he wouldn't be here. And I would have had my space in StreamYard. Never
Yeah.
mind. That's what happens when you
Well,
late
get
to the
that
call.
right next time, You've got to get that right next time. I love you both dearly. We can have an argument
Shelley.
about that later on. Good.
Shelley, I tried to bring you in through Miro Talk. You did connect, and I saw your camera. Didn't you hear anything?
I heard about 3 lots of you then, because I had Patrick chatting in one ear and Paul in the StreamYard, and then you put me into that. So I was hearing you all 3 times, and I panicked, and I just came out of it. So,
Well, Shelley, it's lovely to have you here. You sound crystal clear as well, so this is absolutely brilliant. And I've made a little note for future shows that it looks as though if we've got a limit of 5 here, we've got to make sure that when we throw these big parties to start a year, I get it right. But it's fantastic. And I was saying earlier, just before you arrived, I don't know if you caught it, and I'm going to do it here on air, and thank you publicly. Thank you very, very much for the Cornish clotted cream.
you're very welcome.
Well, my stomach's
Gone all
very
out
welcoming
this
of it
year.
as well. My stomach is responding appropriately to it, and I just happened to have 4. I didn't know it was coming, or when it did arrive. Packaging was amazing, by the way, really amazing packaging. So these 2 lovely cartons of extremely quite fattening, I suppose, if I think about it, clotted cream rocked up, and they were ice cold. It came with this really fantastic high-tech packaging and everything, with this sort of ice cold doobry in it. and I happen to have 4 freshly purchased scones in the house. Yes.
Wow, you were ready.
I was.
I've got to ask
I was
you,
ready. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you have your scones with jam?
Yes.
And did you
Yes.
put on jam first?
Yes, I did.
That's
Is
all
it-
right. That's all right.
Is that okay? Have I passed? Have I
You
passed?
passed. You're flying the flag, boy. Yeah, that's right. You're flying the flag. That's all right.
Well, traditionally,
Like
it's
a
always
true
been
Cornish
strawberry
bird.
jam for me, but we just happen to not have any, and I've really got into raspberry jam recently. I just really like raspberry jam, so it ended up being
doesn't
raspberry
matter.
jam, and I don't know if I put too much on or not enough with the clotted cream. It's always difficult to tell, isn't it? It's always slightly. That seems a lot, but then it could be more. Is always what's going through my head, and. For our American friends, Paul and Patrick, have you had English cream teas with clotted cream?
Never. Never. And I hear
I
in
know.
Devon they do it different. Am I incorrect?
Do they?
You
Do
are
they do?
correct,
Cream
sir,
on
which is why Paul got it right. You see, so I just to enlighten any folks that may be overseas or not from.
It's the
Cornwall.
it's the Chenal way, hey?
Yeah, in
Yeah.
Cornwall, you always put on the jam first. In Devon,
And do you
across
say
the
it like
Tamar,
that?
Yeah,
You say it like that. You have to put
Jam
on the
first,
jam
boy.
first, right?
jam first.
Well,
boy.
tell about that
That's right.
funny video with Trump superimposed with the Cornish accent.
You can find that. You can find that on YouTube if you
What's
just
it-
put
what-
in. I think if you just put in the Cornish Donald Trump, it'll come up.
KKT.
KKT.
Just
yeah,
put
it could be
KKT into YouTube and it should come up.
So the thing is, these dreadful people across. I should be careful because my mum's actually from Devon, but these dreadful people across the Tamar, see, they put on the cream first and put the jam on top. 'Tis all wrong.
Well, I don't know how you can control the jam. It's very important, everybody on Rumble and everybody out there listening in WBN. This is quite an important discussion. This is not. It might sound light and unimportant, but it's very important. So
This is heritage we're talking about.
Yeah, it is heritage. I've always found that if I put the cream on first, applying the jam just becomes really rather a challenging exercise. It starts moving around on the loose base of cream. Of course, the clotted cream is as thick as concrete. It's just unbelievably stodgy, which, of course, it makes it even all the more exciting. I could feel my arteries thickening as I even looked
You
at
can
it.
freeze it, Paul. You can freeze it.
Can
if you
I?
wanted to save one of them, yeah.
Why would I want to save it? I can't work out why I'd
Well,
want to
just
do
if
that.
you're like, trying to cut back and it's too much
Trying
to
to
get
cut
through. Just pop
Well,
it in
I
the
was
freezer.
actually hoping
Life's for
hoping
living.
to open up a sort of distribution channel with you, Shelley, and we need to get you really in the clotted cream distribution business because it's. I'm serious. It's just absolutely. It's an amazing. It's the most ridiculously over the top treat you can put in your mouth. I can't think of anything more excessive than a scone with jam and that stuff on the top of it. It's just like as you're eating it that there's nothing worse or better that you could ever put in your mouth. Isn't it something like that? Don't you think?
What's
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
lovely.
I like it by itself. And I mean, my dad used to eat it on cornflakes. Have it all spread out over on his cornflakes.
Right.
It's
Okay.
lovely in soup as well. It's lovely.
What?
You put a big dollop of it in your soup. It's it's
Yeah,
amazing.
Fry mushrooms in it.
Oh, now you're talking.
Highly fattening, but
No.
tasty.
Well, it's absolutely marvellous. And of course, I had lashings of Earl Grey tea with it. So, Paul and Patrick, you do need to organise getting some of this in your life at some point so that you know what we're
I
talking
want a
about.
recipe on how to make clotted cream now. Just so I can try it.
Well, just get Shelley to ship some. That's what you need.
Yeah.
She can only charge a rather excessive premium for it and should do so.
I bet the shipping would be crazy though.
It'd be worth
Yeah,
it.
the shipping, in all fairness, costs the same as the cream pool, but
Yeah. But it's I think I mentioned here before when I was down in London in the 80s, I ended up bumbling around with this American chap called Joe, wonderful guy, full of an absolute brilliant cook. He was so brilliant that he was the sauce chef at one of the LaRue brothers restaurants. Now, that I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but back in the 80s, the LaRue brothers had these high-class cuisine and all that kind of stuff, right? All the Michelin stars and all this, that, and the other, and they were sort of the elite of the elite. They were in that sort of class of high-class cooking for the gentry and all that kind of stuff. And he ended up working for them. And I always remember a couple of things he told me. One was that his test from, I think it was Michel LaRue, one of the brothers anyway, he had to go in at lunchtime and cook him his lunch. And it was specific what he had to cook him a fried egg. And apparently he said, "Have you ever cooked a fried egg?" I said, "You what?" I said, "Of course." He said, "Well, they test the cooks on how perfect they can cook a fried egg," which is quite interesting, isn't it? So he passed on the fried egg test. He said, "It's got to be just right. You've got to get it so it's firm on the top, it can't be too cold, all that kind of stuff. You know what it's like." And I thought, yeah, I could see that. He was such a specialist that all they made him cook was the fish sauce, which is a very high position, apparently. That's all he made. He was responsible for making the fish sauce. So he knew how to cook. And I remember just hanging around at his flat a couple of times when he fell on his feet and got some girlfriend who was in the fashion industry. So he was surrounded by those types. I was, of course, an oik at the time. And she just happened to have a spare flat in Covent Garden that he lived in. Some guys, boy, did they land on their feet or what? And I was around there a few times. He just cooked things out of the cupboard. It was just amazing. Just a bit of pasta and stuff. And it was always good. But I'm leading up to the cream tea thing. He said to me at one point, he said, "Have you ever eaten a cream tea?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, he said, until I came here, I'd never eaten one." I said, "Right." He said, "And we were maybe down in your neck of the woods or somewhere down, southwestish." And he was out there one day and he ordered one, having never seen one before. And it blew his mind. It was so funny. He said, "It's not right that you guys are eating these things all the time." I said, "We don't eat them all the time." He said, he got so into it that he ate 3. I said, "You fat person, you. 3 he ate." He said, "I couldn't leave it alone." I said, "No, it's got the power of the clotted cream. It's absolutely amazing." So, Shelley, it was a fantastic treat. Many, many thanks. It's lovely. So if anybody out there got a gift as good as that, you were doing all right at Christmas, because to me, that was just absolutely fabulous. So it made my Christmas, Shelley. I'm serious. It really did. It was lovely.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Afterwards, I did think, Darren said to me, "Can't they get cream up there?" I said, "Oh, I don't know." I said, "But it's Cornish clotted cream, isn't it?"
Of course.
And then I thought, perhaps I should have bought you a couple of little candles for your reading corner. But hey, we save that for next year.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, so.
Yeah, I can read the
And an
label
Easter
on the
egg.
clotted
I'll just
cream
keep
thing
posting
by
you things.
candlelight. That would be good. That would be that would be really, really good. Earlier on, before the show started, Warren jumped in there. Hi, Warren, and hi everybody else in the Rumble chat. Hope you're all doing okay on this. I'm assuming it's as cold for you as it is for me here. It is pretty nippy here where I am. So nippy, I've got an extra jumper on. How about that? Which doesn't sound so exciting, does it? But it's at least I'm warm. Anyway, Warren put a shout in for a song. And I was talking to Patrick about it beforehand. Let me just see if I've got it here. Yeah, we do. So he mentioned "Don't Fence Me In" by Bing Crosby. Okay, and which of course we quite like, and it's quite a nice song, and it may get played, Warren. But the reason it won't get played right now, because I'm going to play a song right now, just to give us a little break. We're about half an hour in. We're going to play "Don't Fence Me In" by someone else. Okay, I'm going to play it, and then you've got to guess who it is, although Patrick, of course, knows. Anyway, so here we go. This is "Don't Fence Me In" by our mystery singer.
Give me land, lots of land under starry skies above. Don't fence me in. Let me ride through the wide open country that I love. Don't fence me in. Let me be by myself in the evening breeze. Listen to the murmur of the cottonwood trees. Send me off forever, but I ask you please, don't fence me in. Just turn me loose, let me saddle my old saddle underneath the western sky. On my cayuse, let me wander over yonder till I see the mountains rise. I want to ride to the ridge where the west commences, gaze at the moon till I lose my senses. Can't stand hobbles and I can't stand fences. Don't fence me in. Don't fence me in. Don't fence me in. Let me be by myself in the evening breeze. Listen to the murmur of the cottonwood trees. Send me off forever, but I ask you please, don't fence me in. Just turn me loose, let me straddle my old saddle underneath the western sky. Underneath the western sky. On my cayuse, let me wander over yonder till I see the mountains rise. Mountains high. I want to ride to the ridge where the west commences, gaze at the moon till I lose my senses. Can't stand hobbles and I can't stand fences. Don't fence me in. Don't fence me in. Don't fence me in. Don't fence me in.
Wasn't that sweet? Wasn't that sweet? Now, you're started for 10, everybody. Who was that? Who was that man singing that song? Any clues? Any ideas?
I don't have the first clue, but it was a lovely, lovely version. I was away with the fairies listening to that. It was lovely. Honestly,
Pat
I
Boone.
love that. I love that era of music.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Was it Pat Boone?
No. It's good. I like knowing the answer, and you guys know. Patrick knows, but he's not allowed to speak up. In fact, he's not allowed to, because it's cheating, isn't it, Patrick? He's gone. Where is he? Oh.
He's not allowed to speak up.
Bob
Remember?
I'll tell you who. Guess who it was? Seriously, that was the one and only Clint Eastwood.
Hey,
You are kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding
you know
you.
what?
He'd obviously just had some clotted cream to give him that lovely, wonderful, mellifluous, happy, light tone. Clint Eastwood.
Do you know what?
Seriously.
There was an interview with him years and years ago, and someone said to him, "Clint, how is it you're so cool?" And he
Yeah.
pulled out a soft packet of cigarettes from his breast pocket, flicked one into his mouth, and went, "I don't know."
So there you go, everyone. Clint Eastwood's now made his appearance here on the show. It's about bloody time too. So there we go. By the way, there was a lot of adverse comments or other comments regarding the clotted cream. Someone had written in here rather
Don't
wittily.
listen to them. It's just useless propaganda. It's
I know, it's
absolute
all
nonsense. It's
I know.
downverse.
Billy Silver writes, he says, "Oh lordy, the cream and jam scuffle." Yes, Billy, it's like that. Everyone knows it's cream first. Good grief. What are we supposed to do? Billy, good grief.
Sure, I like
And
his tone.
yeah, then Nedward comes in and says, "The Marmite goes on before the cream and jam." So there we go. The Marmite before the cream and jam. I'll have to not give that a try, Nedward. Thanks awfully for that suggestion. Yeah, Marmite, cream and jam. No, we won't be doing that. That would be wrong. That would be completely
Marmite and
wrong.
cream would work.
Should
though,
try
because
the
that
American
cream will
way.
work with anything.
What is Marmite?
Yeast extract, Patrick.
You either love it or hate it.
That's right. I love it, but not with clotted cream.
You could try doing it the American way.
What's that way, Paul?
Take equal portions of each, mix them together, and then spread them on the scone all at once.
Oh boy.
No.
Would that be the
That's
American
the
way? Like a
American way.
puree?
It's
Would be
lazy.
like a puree.
You know, everything prepared.
That's why there's no such thing as an American cream tea, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously.
The
Maybe
main
there's a-
question is,
By the way, that's
Maybe there's a
Europe.
franchise opportunity in America, Paul and Patrick's cream tea emporiums. I don't know. Be
Yeah.
quite a
but is it
thing.
a scone or a scone? That's the question. Is it a scone or a scone?
It's a
Because to me,
scone.
It's a scone.
Come on,
It's
let's have
called
an
It's a
argument.
scone. It's a
What is it?
scone.
It's a
Yeah.
scone.
Right, who's for scones? Come on. Mallificus is saying scone. Shelley, what is it?
No.
A scone or a scone?
Scone.
It's
This
a
is-
scone.
It's a scone.
Yeah.
Scone.
Like an
yeah.
ice cream scone.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
do
always-
you put the milk in first when you have tea or after you put the pour the tea?
Ooh. After.
Hang on a minute. That depends on the tea.
Before
bag.
if you've
Let's
got
not
a
change the
teapot.
subject here. Do you say gone or do you say gone?
Gone.
Yeah,
Gone.
scone.
Oh, I've gone outside, I would say. When I'm
Yes,
speaking
what is going
when I'm
outside?
speaking quite posh. Yes, absolutely. Scone, Mallificus, is what you say after you've eaten it.
No, no,
Where is it? Scone.
no.
Yep.
Scone.
You look, Warren's typed in here SCON. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. What does that mean? It means that because you haven't put an E on, we've got to have a. It's got to be an O.
You don't spell gone without an E, do you?
Yeah, but you don't spell ice cream cone. I mean, that's the nearest word, isn't it? Traffic cone. You don't call them traffic
No, gone is the
cons,
nearest
although I
word.
suppose you could.
Obviously, because it sounds like scone.
It's got a bloody E at the end. Surely the E has got some sort of softening of the vowel sound.
Yeah, but
to
didn't they
ori-
teach you in school that the E is a magic E? Sometimes it changes letters into a different thing. Sometimes it doesn't. That's what
Not
they
in
taught
my
me
school. I came from up north. They didn't teach me that.
Well, hey, I've got one for Paul B. Paul B. Have you ever heard of a pasty?
Yeah.
You know what a pasty is?
Yeah. It's some places they call them pasties.
Cornish
Yeah, but what
pasty.
is it?
Isn't it? It is a Polish. It is a Polish pastry that is like a donut with no hole, and it's usually coated like with chocolate frosting or something like that.
Oh, that sounds
All right.
interesting.
All right. So the Cornish people here will really be upset with you right now.
No, I enjoyed that description. I thought it was a great one.
Oh yeah, it sounds delicious. But what's a pasty? Because we got into this before, and then the whole Swede versus rutabaga argument.
A pasty came from the tin miners because they had a crust on the outside, and because the tin was poisonous, they would eat the contents of the pasty and then throw the crust away. So that's why you had
Yeah,
this
which is
ruffled edge around the
blasphemy
crust.
nowadays, obviously.
Yes, you eat a lot now. And I think for a true Cornish pasty, it's got to be, is it lamb? I think it's got to be lamb. It can't have anything else but a
For a
lamb.
true Cornish pasty, it's got to be savoury at one end and sweet at the other.
Yes, it.
Yeah.
I think what's
It
good
wasn't
about
just the
tonight's
tin, I
show
think it
is
was it's the artist.
is the weighty topics that we're talking about is really, really good, isn't it? We're talking really weighty, heavy stuff tonight, which I think is
Well,
good.
pasty's fairly hefty, Matt, and so's clotted cream. That's fairly hefty too.
It is. It is. Absolutely.
Well,
I haven't had
Paul-
had a Cornish nasty, as we used to call them for ages. I don't know why we call them that, because we really liked them. They weren't nasty at all, but we ended up calling them Cornish nasties.
I've never
And-
had one before.
Oh,
I'll have to try
Patrick.
it someday.
There's a lot of things,
Gorgeous.
Patrick. Yeah, they're fantastic.
So it's a short crust pastry, and inside you have potato, you have onion. Nowadays, at least, you have potato, you have onion. Traditionally, they use beef skirt, which is like from the stomach area, obviously, skirt,
Bacon.
and swede or turnip, depending on where you're from. But it should really be turnip.
Shouldn't it?
I believe
Alright.
so. Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, hey Paul, I mean the weighty subject. I mean, you begged the question like, what happened in 2024, and most of us were like,
Yeah, anybody remember anything? Anybody in
Yeah,
the
I
chat
don't
remember
remember
anything
much
that
of
happened last
anything.
I
year?
have a
Come on.
synopsis.
remembering.
I have a synopsis in my own mind. I mean, I'm lucky because I don't have a TV, so I don't have to take in any of the
The bilge.
waffle that is
Yep.
sort of sent our way. So in that respect, I can honestly say that 2024 consisted of, for me, working rather a lot, enjoying some music, and just generally turning my back on what all these idiots seem to think they're going to do with the planet.
Would you? I agree. Would you like to know what the Council on Foreign Relations has identified as the 10 most significant world events in 2024?
Oh, the CFR, yeah. So
yes,
yeah,
the Council on Foreign, a really good organisation that used to give its orders to Hillary Clinton. Wholesome, nothing but goodness flows from this organisation. I've gone through the list. I can't read all the stuff out because they're very tedious in a way, but there's 10 of them. So let's do a countdown according to the CFR. This might take for the rest of the show, but we'll see. Number 10, according to them, is that the space race is alive and well. How about that? Now, this throws into the idea, does space actually exist? And I believe there are certain people who think it doesn't. Or certainly not the way that it's described to us. The space race is alive and well. It says, I'll read a couple of sentences here. I haven't gone through this at all prior to the show because I was too busy coughing. If you want to see the human potential for creation as well as for destruction, look to the heavens. Hurrah! Some of the high exploration in 2024 included Japan landed a slim, smart lander for investigating the moon. God, these acronyms they come up with. On a lunar crater in January and transmitted data back to Earth for 3 months. Yippee. But did they find out if it's made out of cheese? This is all we're really bothered about. China sent a mission that brought back soil samples from the far side of the moon. NASA's Perseverance rover found possible evidence of microbial life on Mars. A joint EU-Japan mission photographed the South Pole of Mercury, and SpaceX demonstrated a new technology for capturing returning booster rockets with chopstick arms. I have to say that if those booster rockets... You find that amusing, Mallificus?
Sorry.
Well, didn't India say...
All of it. It's all a ridiculousness. All of it is an absolute ridiculousness.
Oh, it's very important. The CFR are wanting us to know just how important this is. We should take it very seriously, apparently. Although not as seriously as clotted cream. That's far more serious than this nonsense. I am quite impressed when those rockets come back to Earth, if, given what we are seeing, is genuine. Which it appears to be, whether I don't know how far they're going up or what they're really doing. And I think Musk is becoming more and more questionable with each passing day. Is he not?
Yes. I was just going to say, it reminds me of the Indians landing their craft on the moon. Do you remember seeing
the Red Indians? The Red Indians.
Oh, the Indian? No, India.
No, not the feathered Indians, the ruby Indians.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a question.
What's that, Mallificus? You remember seeing that?
Yeah, that was one of the most hilarious. Was this year?
No, I think it was a year or so ago.
It was the year before, wasn't it? That was one of my most hilarious moments of 2023.
It was a joke.
Yeah. I had all these people sending to me through photographs of African space projects as well. I thought they were hilarious too. Just go onto Google. Don't even ask. Just go onto Google and type in African space project.
Yeah. Well, I love space. Space is great. Isn't it great? It's lovely space. Further, I'm not reading the whole article. Yeah, go on.
Warren in the chat there has just said the CFR is utter evil. We just said they were rather wholesome. Warren, just so you know, I genuinely, I think my favourite person who did a speech on the CFR was a chap called Myron Fagan. That was an excellent speech, in fact.
From the
Worth
60s?
looking up if you can get hold of it.
Was that from the 60s?
I don't know when it was actually.
I think it was. I've got a copy of that on vinyl somewhere.
Yeah. On vinyl?
Yeah, that's how he released it. It was a whole series of
man.
LPs, wasn't it? Albums that were released.
Well, 'cause
audio quality is outstanding on that thing.
Patrick, if you've got that, can you do me a really decent copy of that? That would be amazing. Sorry, this should be off radio chat. Sorry.
No.
No, it's fine. It's just we're loose as a goose here. This is the New Year's show. We're all just bracing ourselves for imminent happiness, I suppose. Everything's just going to go so well. On to the tail end of this point.
Question.
Yes, question from Paul.
I have a question on the space thing.
Space thing.
Now, the space thing. The space race, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
Who on our panel of esteemed people in this program believes for 1 second that the United States was able to launch a probe that actually found anything on Mars when, according to NASA, they lost the technology to get to the moon?
That's a very good question, Paul.
Any of it?
Well, we have
to.
I found out something listening earlier to the Fact Hunter show. I didn't know this, that Elon Musk and Donald Trump are alumni to the same college, the Wharton School of Business.
Yeah. It's a good job I'm sat down. Really, honestly, Patrick, I'm so glad I'm sat down.
Yeah.
It comes as such a shock to me. But no, I just think anyone that is prepared to believe that we're going to spend millions and millions or billions of pounds on rockets when we're supposed to be preserving the planet from CO2. Have you any idea how much those fireworks did to the environment? The fireworks display on New Year's Eve in London did for the environment.
Made it more interesting.
Is the ultra low emission zone in London, right in the middle of it. They just launched like about an hour's worth of fireworks at the cost of millions to the taxpayer. And what's going on with that? What are the carbon emissions of fireworks anyway?
Well,
I love how these people speak out both sides of their mouth at once. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, you've noticed that, have you? You've noticed that. It does seem to be a defining characteristic. But this is the CFR that's talking, Mallificus. We can believe them, surely, can't we? Of course we can. We can believe everything that they say.
Myron Fagan. Sorry, I'm going back to Myron Fagan on that one. I think I'll refer to him as my expert.
Anyway, it wraps up. This little thing says, unfortunately, that word. Let's just wrap this little point number 10 up. It says, unfortunately, space is not just home to commercial and scientific competition. Unfortunately, it is also home to renewed geopolitical competition. US officials accused Russia, in May, of placing nuclear space-based anti-satellite weapons in space. Well, I never. China, meanwhile, greatly expanded the number of military satellites it has in space. The few international agreements governing space operations do little to constrain the militarization of space. The United States continues to urge countries to sign onto the Artemis Accords. We've all heard about those, haven't we? Which seek to prevent the militarization of space exploration. 52 countries are now signatories. Notably, that list does not include China or Russia, therefore making the entire agreement pointless. I added the last bit in there. So there we go. So that's space. According to the CFR, number 10, the space race is alive and well. It's a race for capturing our imaginations about things that are not plausible, I think, to a great degree. So there we go. I think have we covered space? Any more comments on space? No? Any more space comments? No.
Final Frontier.
I don't think we've got enough space for it. I don't think, to be honest. I think it's just, again, an absolute nonsense. A load of waffle that we didn't need to worry about in 2024, and we're not going to need to worry about in 2025 either.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you, CFR.
Yeah, they're good. They're good.
I have another thing. They're probably going to talk about the climate because it is the Council on Foreign Relations, and I don't want the spoiler alert or anything like that. But I will believe that they are the least bit concerned about the climate and greenhouse gases and all that. I will believe that when they stop multiplying the population of private jets where the Bilderberg meetings are being held by an order of magnitude while the meetings are on. Can't they fly commercial? They don't need Learjets lined up that close the friggin' airport because there's nowhere to put another plane. sorry.
That's like the Aspen
Well, I
Institute
think you should
and all
become the
planes that
spokesperson
fly
for
in
this,
there.
Paul. We need you in front of a microphone talking like this, to large audiences of these goofballs in Europe or wherever they may be. But yeah, absolutely. You won't be surprised to know that the climate, I think, is coming up. It's much higher up the list because it's very, very, very important, as you know, that we believe their bilge. Yeah, it's very important. But number 9, anyway, says, this sounds rather dull. The world braces for China shock 2.0. What? China rose from economic backwater to global powerhouse in the early 2000s on the back of exports. Horse shit. We can come into that in a second. Not that didn't take place, but there's a reason why it happened. But that success came at a cost to others, particularly the United States. Americans got the cheaper consumer goods, but lost 1 million manufacturing jobs as domestic producers either shuttered their doors or moved abroad in search of lower-cost labour. I reject all of those sentences as being the true reason for it. The main reason that China took off is that they'd planned to empower China, because I heard this from the horse's mouth in 93 during several cups of coffee at Liverpool Street Railway Station about how the major families of the finance system had already earmarked China to rise, and it's not without plan or design or the provision of money under favourable circumstances. And I think also Bill Clinton had quite a bit to do with it, didn't he? Because wasn't he nicking an awful lot of patented industrial development processes, courtesy of the Americans, the people he's supposed to represent, and effectively shuffling them over to the Chinese because he's all part of the shit show that is the globalist communist world order? Or am I out of order?
I think you're bang on the money. It's all about centralizing everything.
Of course it is.
We didn't see a single Amazon van down here before lockdowns, and then after lockdowns there was a whole fleet of them. So this is all about a gentle centralization of everything. Don't worry, folks. You can keep your creature comforts. You've just got to lose all your freedoms. That's all.
Yep. That's it. So China is a completely false narrative as far as I'm concerned with regards to nearly everything, but China's definitely another false one. How many of them are there? 1,500 million? It's quite a lot. And of course, there are all these rather distressing reports of them taking over Africa, which won't turn out well because they don't have a careful, in my view, the Chinese don't have a careful attitude about the economies or nations that they go into. As witnessed by the fact that apparently if you go from Hong Kong to mainland China, you suddenly realise how quiet it is. And the reason why it's so quiet is that they've eaten everything. I just thought I'd throw that in.
Interesting fact for you. I have a friend who lives in Serbia. And if you're Chinese in Serbia, you don't have to give anyone a receipt for anything. You don't have to give them an invoice. Because you're totally tax exempt. Yeah. I had another friend who was thinking about moving over there. I said, make sure you have some plastic surgery before you do.
And change your name. Yes. Oh, I wonder if we could come up with any funny Chinese names. Probably shouldn't. Probably shouldn't do that.
Probably shouldn't.
It's probably wrong.
There's enough out there already.
I know.
Probably very wrong.
There you go. Two whites don't make a wong. So there we go. Anyway, drones on about the glut of goods has some virtues from China. Low-cost Chinese solar panels. Yeah, useless technology, so stick that up your bum. Electric vehicles, battery vehicles, please. Complete joke, waste of time. Would speed up the world's transition to a greener economy? No, it wouldn't. It just would speed up the world's transition to a more controllable economy. So we, the people at the CFR, are very happy about that. But importing countries are more worried that a second China shock. I'm worried about this. I can't sleep at night thinking about a second China shock. I'm sure everybody else is the same. Will destroy their domestic industry, not as fast as the governments of the nations are destroying them. So let's not blame the Chinese for that. Let's blame the traitors in charge of our own nations, supposedly. The European Union took several steps to stop or slow the influx of Chinese imports. Brazil and India are among the countries that joined the US in imposing new tariffs, blah, blah, blah. Could fuel greater tensions or set the stage for a negotiated solution. God, just think people actually sit around reading this nonsense. It's so boring, isn't it? But I guess when you're trying to control the entire world, you've got to pay attention to that. So there we go. That one, number 9, wasn't very exciting at all, was it? That was quite dull. I thought it was dull. Number 8 is that the Sudanese
most
civil
exciting.
war rages on. I didn't even know that there was one, but I suppose there must be. There just seems to be wars
North and
everywhere.
south.
The civil war that began in April 2023 continued unabated into 2024. So not good, but it'll be have the usual. So let's move on. That I don't know anything
They're
about
kind
that.
of overshadowed by these bigger wars.
Yeah, they've got some really big ones at the moment, haven't they? Number 7. Oh, this might be. Developments in AI, artificial intelligence, continue to astound and concern. The AI revolution is turning science fiction into science fact. The list of recent AI advances is impressive, as are the practical applications. AI is being used to analyze genetic conditions, improve healthcare, really, create manufacturing efficiencies, and more. The Nobel Prize Committee recognized AI's importance when it awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics to John Hopfield and Geoffrey Hinton for foundational discoveries and inventions that enable machine learning with artificial neural networks, and half of the Nobel Prize in Chemistry to Demi Hassabis and John Jumper, nice name, for developing an AI model to solve a 50-year-old problem predicting proteins' complex structures. So there we go. So maybe some good will come out of all of this, but whether AI really exists or not, I don't know. I suppose I'm going to look like a complete backward Luddite saying these things, but I am really a neo-Luddite.
It's only as good as the programmer programming it.
Mm-hmm.
It's only as intelligent as them.
Yeah.
But like ChatGPT is already upgraded to level 5.
What's
From,
Right.
you know, their ChatGPT.
No, level
it's-
5. What does that mean?
Well, that's like the highest you can go now. It's like they'll keep updated like your software. Yeah. So it started off with level 1 and it's now on level 5. And I think the time it took something like 8 months for Netflix to get 1 million subscribers, and ChatGPT took 3 months to get 1 million subscribers. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Does anybody use it? I've never even used it.
Yep.
Yeah. What do you
Show
use it
notes
for,
on the
Shelley?
radio pool.
What do you
Mainly the
use it
show
for?
notes on
Really?
Pod Home. It uploads your show, and you just have to change a couple of spellings it gets wrong of people's names. But
Yeah.
that's mainly what I use it for. But when I've created adverts for work and stuff like that, I just ask it a question and 5 seconds, it's there. It wrote a song for me as well for my show, and yeah, I'm a bit of a cheat. But then it stops you getting doesn't stop you. It makes you get lazy, doesn't it?
It is
But-
kind of fun, the AI music where you could just put in
Yeah.
lyrics and pick the genre of music you want it to imitate. It is clever and catchy.
It's-
I like that.
It
fun.
is, though, completely without soul.
Yeah.
Because how can it possibly have any kind of soul? It didn't come from somebody's heart. It just came from a bunch of algorithms. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not
but they
saying
had-
you could.
I'm pretty sure
you
what
could listen
they're
to a song
doing.
and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And
Right.
you think,
But-
oh, that's a beautiful song, and that really pulled my heartstrings, and it might be AI written. But what I'm saying is, in reality, it's completely soulless because it didn't come from somebody.
Well, it does come from somewhere because the programmers do program it from something. They start off with, I'm sure they analyze all the songs that they can put into the thing that have already been written and sung, and it somehow picks apart those things. So it does have a soul in that sense. And I think it's only as good, like I said, the computers are only as intelligent as the programmers who program
As
them
the
and the
programmers.
accumulation of the programmers. So it's picking from something that had a soul to begin with, which is namely people. And so in that regard, it does have a soul, and they're catchy. You know, some of these melodies that it comes up with are, you know,
I don't want to know.
I don't know. I find it quite clever.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
I like
I'm
it.
sure
It
it
saves
is.
me a whole lot of work.
Yeah.
I know, but
Be
you know,
honest.
I'm not being funny. I sit and I write songs and music and stuff, and to think that some git could just go, oh, I think I want to write a song about picking up snails in the garden, and they type it in and it comes up with a #1 seller. I mean, that, mind you, that just shows how stupid and gullible the public are, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Eric.
No,
Eric,
there's nothing bitter about it. It's just the public are stupid and gullible.
I see Eric's back. Eric, have you ever used any of this AI music type software to create songs?
No, I've used the pictures though. you can go onto sites where you can get AI photographs, and they're very, very good. So I've used them for the adverts for shows and things like that. So that's what I use them for. But that's about the only time I've used AI.
That's like me. But Mallificus, in reference to your snail song, I've just typed in, can you write me a snail song? And it's called Snail's Pace. I see you gliding slow and steady with your little house so round and ready. You leave a trail where you've been, a silver line so soft, so thin. You don't rush, no, you don't care. Taking your time, no need to hurry anywhere. The world spins fast, but you take it slow. In your shell, you've got a place to go. And there's about 3 other verses, but so there's your song.
I want to say I'm impressed, but you know, by default, I'm going to have to say it's rubbish.
Of course, you do have to say that. But Eric, you are championing fountain pens, aren't you?
Yes, and you can get them off of eBay now, Chinese ones that I would say are better or as good as Parker pens, because Parker were normally an Osmoroid with the top ones, but I'm left-handed, so it's very, very difficult. As Osmoroid, they used to do a left-handed nib. Well, you smudge your own work.
Is there such a thing?
See, when you were, yeah, there was a left-handed nib from an Osmoroid. They used to do it.
Really?
But they don't do it anymore. Yeah.
So that's what basically. Oh, good grief! I'd never even thought about that.
Because I write at the bottom when I'm printing. I go under the letters, and when I'm doing flowing writing, like joined up writing as they call it, I go over the top like a hooked hand. But as you're going along, you see, you got to lift your hand up because you're smudging your own work because you're going from left to right. That's the problem with being left-handed or cack-handed as they call it. But
I think left-handed people should have to write from the right to the left. That would make life much easier.
Isn't that what Leonardo da Vinci did? Didn't he do it? And then you have to have a mirror.
Say that. Yeah, get a mirror.
And what about pen discrimination? When you walked into a bank and had to, in the old days, when you had to write something like write a check, the pen was always chained to the right-hand side. So when you used it,
the chain would drag across.
Yeah. So that was discrimination. You see, it's upset me. I've had to go to therapy for it. I want compensation.
Litigation.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
See? Well, I feel very sorry for you, and I'm happy to put in a good word for your plight.
I'm actually quite happy being left-handed. I mean, it's the very strange thing is that there's certain professions where there's more left-handedness than anything else, and one of them is architecture. There's more architects that are left-handed than anything else. And I worked in an architect's office where there was about 20 of us, and only one that was right-handed. We was all left-handed. Seriously.
Right.
And it's a very, very high amount of left-handedness. Yeah.
Well, the words in Latin, the word sinister in Latin, it's derived from that. It means left-handedness. So I wonder about that.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I knew that.
Well,
that's why they talk about the left-hand path and all this kind of stuff. But obviously, if you're left-handed, it means that the right-hand side of the brain controls the left hand, right?
Correct. That's right. Yeah.
And the right-hand side of the brain is the bit that's really creative with things like spatial relationships and concepts and stuff like that. I don't know if you know that, but it's true. So left-handedness is indicative that your predominant thinking space is on the right-hand side of the brain, which is generally not the common thing, as the left-hand side is the bit that's full of logic and names things and is all sort of procedural and passes exams and all that kind of boring twaddle, which no one's really interested in, but apparently counts in engineering or something. But yeah, that might go some way to explaining it.
And we don't get seasickness as well, because I came back for, I think it's a false 10 gal over the channel. Everybody was throwing up and I wasn't. Apparently, it's something to do with being left-handed. You don't get seasick, which is quite nice, actually.
We got. Is there any
what is that? An old wives' tale? What the bloody hell's that all about? That can't be right.
It's funny you saying about left-handed people. So I spoke to my neighbour down the end of the road, and he said, I've got 2 left-handed bass guitars that I need to get rid of. And I'm racking my brains trying to think of anyone that he can sell them to. And I'm thinking, well, I doubt Paul McCartney needs any. So he's a bit stuck, really. I suppose if you wanted to be Paul McCartney, you'd have to be left-handed as well.
Well, you just do the Jimi Hendrix thing and restring it right-handed.
Yeah. But Bill Gates is bloody left-handed as well, so he's a very bad representation.
Sinister. There we go again.
Yeah, sinister. Yeah. But
This
was
is
it
not-
every
it's not
American
painting
president?
you in a very good light, Eric.
Yeah, but wasn't it strange? I think it was every American president, one after another, was left-handed. Ronald Reagan was left-handed. Bush Senior was, I think he was left-handed. I think Carter was left-handed as well.
I said it's the only
Very
way they can
weird.
do the silly handshakes, isn't it? Obviously.
Yeah. That's the sinister side.
All those
Yeah, and
left-handers.
then Carter, he just kicked the bucket a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Jimmy Carter did. The peanut farmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't hear it? Hear
Nope.
the news? 100 years old. Yeah, he
Oh, not bad.
passed away.
Probably choked on a
I think it
peanut.
was Sunday.
Yeah. He was a nice guy, wasn't he? But ineffectual and highly controlled. I don't know enough about him, really. But yeah. Anyway, probably not in control of anything much, I suppose, just like the rest of them.
No.
Time for a song.
I-
Time for a song, because we're 7 minutes past 9, so it's always a good time for a song. I've played the Pogues the last 2 weeks in the row, playing the same song twice. I thought I'd play it a third time. No, brace yourself. Christmas is gone for a year. But I came across this one by the Pogues, Dirty Old Town. This is 3.5 minutes long. We're going to take a little break and listen to this about a dirty old town. And we'll be back after this, everyone.
I met my love by the gasworks wall. Dreamed a dream by the old canal. I kissed my girl by the factory wall. Dirty old town, dirty old town. Clouds are drifting across the moon. Cats are prowling on their beat. Springs a girl from the streets at night. Dirty old town, dirty old town. I heard a siren from the docks. Saw a train set the night on fire. I smelled the spring on the smoky wind. Dirty old town, dirty old town. I'm gonna make me a picture box, shining steel, tempered in the fire. I'll chop you down like an old dead tree. Dirty old town, dirty old town. I met my love by the gasworks wall. Dreamed a dream by the old canal. I kissed my girl by the factory wall. Dirty old town, dirty old town, dirty old town, dirty old town.
Attention all listeners. Are you seeking uninterrupted access to WBN 324 Talk Radio despite incoming censorship hurdles? Well, it's a breeze. Just grab and download Opera Browser, then type in WBN324.zil. And stay tuned for unfiltered discussions around the clock. That's WBN324.zil.
The views, opinions and content of the show hosts and their guests appearing on the World Broadcasting Network are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of its owners, partners and other hosts or this network. Thank you for listening to WBN 324 Talk Radio.
And welcome back to Paul English Live here on WBN. It's just gone 12 minutes past 9 of an evening. That means it's 12 minutes past 4 of an afternoon, US Eastern Time. And I'm here with a lively crew. We're joined by Shelley and Mallificus and Paul and Patrick and Eric for a very loose sort of start to 2025. Maybe the last chance we'll get to be fully relaxed before they start attacking us in all sorts of wonderfully interesting and hellish sorts of ways. And I quite like the Pogues now. I quite like them quite a lot. And someone had just written that Shane sings so much better when he's pissed. Well, he did. He, of course, shuffled off this mortal coil. I think it was last year. So there's an event. Or was it 2023? Quite recently, anyway. I wasn't a big fan when they were around, but there's something about that stuff. And that's not made by AI, for those of you who are wondering. Anyway, gents and ladies. Ladies and gents.
AI would never sing like that.
Nah.
Do you remember the Dubliners? What about the Dubliners? They were before the Pogues.
They were.
The Pogues got their idea from the Dubliners. And they were, shall we say, sloshed most of the time.
I think they're still going, the Dubliners, aren't they? They must be in their late 70s and early 80s, but I think they still do gigs. I know John Peel used to play quite a lot of them. I wasn't kind of into it then so much, but they're good musicians. And
I went and watched them last year.
Did you?
At the
Where?
Hall for Cornwall. Yeah, in Truro.
Yeah?
Yes, they were very good.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
Were they sober? Were they sober?
I don't know really, but it was entertaining.
What was that other group? Well, the bloke had a harp. What was it now? They I can't remember their name. Was it the Chieftains?
Oh yeah,
I
them.
went to see the Chieftains once, and
Yes.
a bloke on the harp got up halfway through, went out. They said, "I was okay. He's just going to the loo." He got back again and carried on playing. But they actually teamed up with some Chinese musicians, and the Chinese had these strange. And I saw them on stage. It blended very well. You would never think Irish and Chinese music would blend, but it did. Yeah, it's very odd. But a little bit of, but you never hear of the Chieftains nowadays. Are they still going?
Well, I guess. I don't know. Someone do a search and find out. Maybe we could all meet up and for a whiskey and go see them or something and fall over. So anyway, yeah. Should we get back to the delights of the Council on Foreign Relations? There's other things to talk about. We've got about 6. We just did AI, didn't we? And as we were saying, the Pogues are not AI. Number 6 is Russia takes the offensive in Ukraine. Well, of course, the whole Ukraine thing is highly offensive. Is it worth even reading their twaddle? Blah 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 blah. Since
Probably
July,
not, but
no.
I'd like to kind of hear what they have to say because we know it's all a load of waffle, and forgive me if I'm upsetting anyone, but we all know it's the same coin paying for both sides.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Well, I don't think we're upsetting anybody, really. This stuff is coming out. It just says it's not too long. Let's just hop through this as quick as we can.
Genocide.
Yeah, momentum shifted to Russia in the 3rd year of its war on Ukraine. Since July, Russian forces have pushed Ukrainian troops back along the front in eastern Ukraine. The territory Russia has gained with its meat grinder strategy, so they say, has come at a high price. Russian casualties likely exceed 115,000 killed and 500,000 wounded. Ukraine, with a population roughly a quarter of Russia's, has seen 43,000 troops killed and 370,000 wounded. I would take those numbers with several pinches of salt. Kiev attacked across its northern border in August to seize territory in Russia's Kursk region. The move sought to force Moscow to redeploy, typical sort of language, troops away from embattled Ukrainian forces in Eastern Europe, of course, not revealing the real reason for all this, of course. Russia did not bite, however. It instead secured some 10,000 North Korean troops, to fight in Kursk. I don't know why they did all that. Instead, just jumping ahead here a bit, because it's all a little bit sort of this, that, and the other. Ukrainian intelligence assassinated a senior Russian general with a bomb planted outside his apartment building in Moscow at the risk of provoking Russian. Now, that was recent, wasn't it? That was in December, just gone, that, which was a serious bit of nonsense. Ukrainians continued to lament that the West was slow in providing them with advanced weapons. We shouldn't be fighting anyway. Washington did reverse long-standing policy in November. As 2025 starts, the question is whether Russia and Ukraine can continue their grueling war of attrition. Well, if the bankers want it to happen, that's exactly what will continue to happen. Russia has a decided advantage in men and material. However, its economy is faltering. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian military has been pushed to the brink, and Western support may waver. Calls for a negotiated ceasefire have grown. However, Vladimir Putin's terms for any agreement seem to be Ukraine's capitulation. So that just describes the surface gloss, like all military reporting has done down through the centuries. Mallificus.
I was just going to say, doesn't this just point out? I just want to point this out to everyone. I might be pointing out the obvious, but doesn't this point out a basic failure of the Council on Foreign Relations? Doesn't it point out a basic failure on their part? Sure.
Well, it's like the League of Nations, isn't it? It's the League of Nations before World War II. They had the League of Nations. And now
I know, I'm kind of being facetious. Yeah. It's just the fact that, their whole name intrinsically points out that they should have a hand in this and be sorting it out. The Council on Foreign Relations. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, you're spot on. Yeah. But I actually think these wars, let's face it, when we had First World War, as Europeans tearing the hell out of killing fellow Europeans.
Yeah.
And it was a genocide, a cull, because what we're ruled by is a death cult. They're obsessed with keeping the population down. That was what and the Second World War wasn't planned quite how it was supposed to be planned, but they did want another sort of genocide. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if they arranged some sort of outrage, because all wars start with an outrage. We're going to have even more European countries sucked into the Ukraine war, because there's a country we're not allowed to criticize that is buying up, allegedly, large areas of farmland in Ukraine, because not all of Ukraine is in a war situation. It's a huge country, and it's one of the most fertile areas of Europe.
Well, a lot of those people were originally from there.
Correct. That's right. Yes. So I think that what they want is Europeans to fight for, shall we say, their country, because they want to enlarge their country in that direction. That's my belief.
They want loads of Europeans to go into the quote-unquote meat grinder.
Correct.
From their own words.
I think it must not be forgotten that the Ukrainians and the Russians are basically the same people.
That's right.
This is
Correct.
There's not been a dispute between them. Okay, we know of the Holodomor back in the early 30s. That wasn't a Russian instigated event. We know of the Russian so-called revolution. That too was not a Russian instigated or managed event. Everybody here knows who's responsible for that. That same party is responsible for this, and its ability to control financial structures is what's enabling it to maintain it. It's as simple as that. I have no idea why. It's been designed to sort of dribble on purpose, right? What's really taking place?
It seems like these different groups, like the Council for Foreign Relations, United Nations, they're public relations firms for the Wall Street bankers, the same people that set them up, and it's all Manhattan based. You can kind of geographically locate where all this is coming from. It's coming from Manhattan. It's New York City, which is a third of the U.S. population is within 140 kilometers of this entity, this island in New York, and it's the same group of people, and it's just they come up with these terms and these groups, and it's all public relations. The whole Edward Bernays thing, we were talking about Netflix earlier, and that it's the same kind of thing. And the Sigmund Freud, the whole Freudian thing, and he based a lot of his views on the Illuminati and things like that, where you're gathering intelligence from people who willingly give it to you, and then you're using it as a blackmail against them. And a lot of these politicians have been blackmailed, and that's why nothing seems to get done, because there's always the sword of Damocles held over them if they try and go rogue and do what's right.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
I mean, yeah, I think you're right. Absolutely. And I think, as I've said many times before, if Putin was quote unquote, I've got friends that are on both sides of the fence, right? So I've got a friend who's really like pro Putin. I've got, and obviously I've got many friends that aren't. But the ones that are pro Putin, I've said to them, why didn't he just go, if that was the cause, right? Not the Danzig corridor. Where was it? It was the what region?
What?
Same difference. There. That's why you can't think of it. It's the same difference, isn't it? Same excuse. So, the Donbass region is, it's the World War. It's basically,
what used to be
Putin's
Danzig is now
corridor.
Donbass, is what you mean? Yeah.
Well, it's an analogy, but nevertheless, yes. If he was the good guy and he was going in, why didn't he go in and get the job done? Right? Just go and get, because the Russian all-powerful army, blah, blah, and all my pro-Putin friends are like, oh, you shouldn't mess with the Russian bear, and blah. Why didn't he just go in and get the job done?
It's the
Instead,
same with the
what
Assad,
he's done
though.
is he's created a long and protracted war, which has enabled his supposed enemies like BlackRock, etc., 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 to buy up the country at a rate of knots in war reparations. So, how can he be part of how can he be part of the solution? I'm saying this to any pro-Putin person out there, just purely because I can't square that circle.
Well, I tend to give him the benefit of the doubt in that regard, because you don't want to go in and kill people. I mean, that's like, what was it? What was the big when Adolf Hitler went in that first showdown with Churchill, he could have gone in and ended it.
Well, yeah, but when he went into Poland, it was pretty brutal, mate. It's got to be honest. There was no messing about. All the gloves were totally off.
Right.
Yeah, there's no reason why Russia.
was
There's no reason why Russia could not have overwhelmed Ukraine in 4 to 6 months.
That's what I'm saying. So
right, but
it's just turned into a long and protracted war that is, in actual fact, enabling Putin's supposed enemies to buy up the country at a rate of knots.
By design.
How else is Ukraine going to pay for all this?
By design, of course.
It's been going on a long time, though, too. You have, ever since, I remember when I was working for the court reporting business out of Manhattan, that a lot of the 2008 stock market crash, the housing market crash, a lot of that was tied in with the Lehman Brothers Bank, which was heavily invested in the former Soviet Union bloc countries. And a lot of these loans came to call, and the people couldn't pay it because they couldn't afford to pay it. Their wages were so cheap that they couldn't afford to pay it. That's part of the problem with these paying people such low wages and being greedy at the top. You can't afford then to pay your rent even at a certain point, and then you're gonna have people on the streets, and it's just gonna provoke violence because it's a brutal situation that we're in. And it's been going on a long time. Like I was trying to mention about Assad. A lot of the people in Syria were kind of peeved at him because they would sit and get bombed all the time from Tel Aviv, and he would never retaliate. He would just take it in, and people would, be decimated, and then he'd never do anything about it. And then when he was finally toppled here recently, a lot of people were just like, good riddance, because he wasn't doing anything to defend them against the bombing that was going on for 10, 14 years.
Yeah. But there's got to be money to pay for it all. That's the thing.
Right.
All wars are bankers' wars.
Right.
Russia, as we've pointed out before, Russia's central bank, quote unquote, is a member of international settlements, Bank of International Settlements.
Bank is the biggest bank in Russia, and it's based out of Switzerland. It came out of the Troika Bank. And what's his face? Klaus Schwab wrote a book called The Great Reset with one of the guys involved in that, Theory Macquarie, or whatever his name was. He's one of these Oxford guys, I think. But yeah,
aren't they all, darling?
Yeah, exactly. The City of London, you can blame them all, but also the Wall Streeters. It's all tied. But there again, it's all public relations. Like, it's all meant to get us fighting each other.
It's
and
all
hating
managed.
Each other.
It's managed. It's managed consent.
Well, it is.
Right.
No, I mean, this
consent.
this chaplet, this sort of complete, useless faggot, literally, who's in charge of Ukraine. What's his name again? I can't remember.
Zelensky.
I mean, he's obviously extremely dim. He's not intelligent.
Well,
you can tell from the
like
way he
Arnold
talks.
Schwarzenegger. He's like an Arnold Schwarzenegger type character. They bring him in, he's governor, or like Jesse Ventura.
He is.
Here in
He's a
Minnesota.
man awaiting his instructions all the time.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
He's just a man awaiting instructions, isn't he? And of course, there's that situation that tends to not be talked about too much, but everybody's aware of it, I guess, to some degree, which is to do with these labs, these laboratories, this child trafficking situation in Ukraine, which is meant to be an epicenter for this sort of worldwide corruption of the political class for some time. And the Ukraine is known to be one of the most corrupt countries on the face of the earth, which I don't know whether that says too much. I don't know if there's a chart.
Demographics are destiny, and the demographics in Ukraine for a while have been, slighted in that direction, unfortunately. Against Christians. I think Christianity is the one hope in Ukraine and Russia and these other places too. It gives them hope for the future, but if you don't have enough Christian civilization, you're going to have to import. That's what'll end up happening, is they'll end up importing workers in that'll work cheap. Same with all these, the groups that are.
Well, they'll
they'll
certainly throw that up as a solution, Patrick, because that's what they always do. Because none of these things are solutions; they're just part of the latest, in my view, unfolding of the plan. I mean, if you look at Russia prior to the Russian Revolution, it was an ardent Christian nation. Didn't do it any good because people just started getting killed a lot. And I think, hasn't that been happening with the Ukrainian church? They've banned it or whatever. There's no very little difference between what's happening there now and what happened in Russia 100 years ago. The form of it's slightly different. The names of the parties are different. Geographically, it's located in a slight subsection of the whole thing. But again, it's about the acquisition of stuff under the guise of something else, but basically it's about force. And this whole idea, I mean, I don't believe any of the numbers that were in that report at all. Of course, the Russians are just losing everybody, but they're a formidable military force. That doesn't add up. They've got, obviously, it would appear, if those missile tests we were talking about a couple of weeks ago are genuine, that they've got some rocket that goes at some insane speed. Maybe they probably do. They do have a history of producing very, very quick rockets. It seems to be a thing that they're into. Yeah, where does it lead to? Where does all this? It seems to lead nowhere, in the sense that it's doing exactly what they've designed it to do, which is to be bogged down, to drain things, and to particularly drain Ukraine of its genuine Ukrainian people, so that there won't be any resistant culture on the ground when BlackRock and its minions move in and start dominating the space and extracting value from the land. A whole process.
A lot of this stuff
that's
is
not necessary.
done to break up communication between the West and the East in that regard, for people like you and me that would do business with those people. Because they don't want you and I doing business with them. They'd rather it be devastated, and then they, like you said, bring in cheap labor, and then we have no access to that market, because we should be doing business with these places, and there's no reason why we couldn't. It's just that they don't want us communicating. That's why they put sanctions on everything between these places. And Russia and Iran are two very important geographic locations regarding East and West trade with the Orient, because in order to get over to Orient, you have to go through either Iran or Russia if you're going by land.
Yeah. Well,
and if you have those blockaded, then you can't do business with them unless you ask the people who then have control of that area. But they've blockaded all of that, so you can't do business with them. Like regular Joe, you and me can't really do business.
I know.
If we're sitting in Spain and we want to buy Chinese goods, we have to do it through the middleman. Otherwise, we have to do it by shipping, right?
Of course, I'm quite keen that we don't buy any Chinese goods or anything else, and that everything gets back to national borders, and that there is no such thing as free trade. I don't believe in it at all. I believe in tariffs and barriers completely, because any policy that's championed at all, in part by these think tanks, is nearly always about globalization, and then it's justified with all these, in my view, spurious economic arguments, which only exist because we don't control the bank. That's
think tank.
Pardon?
Think tank. Think tank.
Think tank.
You called the council and foreign.
No, I didn't.
Tank?
I said no. I didn't. I didn't use stink tank. More like no. No, I was just saying about the bank.
Okay, now it fits.
Yeah, they are a stink tank.
All right.
And all that, but it's the narrative that is always where much of their persuasive power lies. They will if you think about it, and it's always the same. Something comes out, they talk about the economy, this, that, and the other. We've got to do that. The ship goods. There's always these complex things, and you get drawn into this detailed story. And in my view, it's all completely. It's not that it's irrelevant because most people believe it, but it's never ever going to address the nub of the problem, which is we got to take the bankers out. And I know I keep coming back to this, but they've got to be nullified. Then we might be able to find out how an economy could actually run honorably. But whilst those people are involved, every single part of the news cycle, the wars that they're able to create, they're justified with these legions of journalists, so-called, reinforcing these narratives, none of which, I would suggest, we have any way of knowing whether they're true or not, because it's just this layer and layer of drama, and of course, awfully death of innocent people who. There's no reason for the Ukrainians and Russians to be fine at all, except third parties, i.e. banking cartels, BlackRock, etc., whatever you want to call them,
right,
have a vested interest in controlling whatever it is that they see Ukraine's got, which is probably a lot. And you think, well, why do you need to control it? Well, the only reason they want to control it is they don't want anybody else to control it. I think that's all it's about. They just don't want anybody else to have this stuff.
Solution would be to make it so that they can't own property. Those big corporations like that, make it so that they can't own property. Then the problem's solved right there.
You just tax them at 1,000,000% or something. They should be taxed. They should endure a thing called a national tax or a national dividend. And if they make more than $1 billion, everything above $1 billion, okay, they are, has to go back to the people of the nation. I mean, look, I'm just pulling these figures out of my bum, but they do the same sort of thing. It doesn't really matter, does it? There is no redress of economic grievance. There's no means of it. Absolutely none for us at all. I mean, over here we've got this thing, we mentioned it the other week, with these additional taxes that they're going to put on food. They appear to be able to just throw a tax on anything they like, anything at all, anything in the slightest. Someone sent through a nifty video about a guy, I think it was it barley? Something used in the brewing of beer. A farmer talking about barley, and for a ton they get 200 quid, but the government get £32,000 out of it. Why?
They're going to tax sex. Did you know they're going to tax sex? They're going to have blokes with little ladders with binoculars, and they're going to call it PAYF, pay as you fornicate. You wonder what I was going to say there, didn't you?
No, I knew you'd be tasteful, Eric. I knew you'd be tasteful.
Check the meter.
But it's not. That's not new though. I've mentioned it before. During the Peasants' Revolt in 1381, one of the things that kicked it off, right, was that they wanted to tax everybody that was classed as a grown-up. And in Fobbing, right, which is not probably a million miles from you, they sent out tax inspectors, okay? And one of the things they were looking for was pubic hair. I'm serious. I'm deadly serious.
Really?
Yeah, they were. So these tax inspectors were going to try and classify if you were an adult, and therefore the household in which you lived would be liable to more tax. So they were these tax inspectors, much to the fury, or whatever word you want to insert, but you can understand their ire, of their mothers, were looking up the dresses of their daughters. I'm serious. And checking bed linen to see if they could find a pubic hair. That was the hair that broke the camel's back. And that's what kicked it off. That's what kicked off violence and then being run out of town and showing a complete lack of concern.
When was this era, Paul? When was this era?
This is 1381 in England, the Peasants' Revolt.
Is it the Peasants' Revolt?
It is. The only really genuine revolt in this history. Yeah.
Do you know what, Paul? They never taught me in school that's how it kicked off.
It was a key part of it.
That's where I started. That's where I started my historical journey throughout secondary school with the Peasants' Revolt.
Yeah.
And at no point did they mention pubic hair.
No.
And you know what? It kind of reminds me of the theme of that film with Mel Gibson, Braveheart, when it's like the lord of the the land has the first rights to the bride, so to speak.
Yes.
Isn't that that was part of that film and the similar?
It was.
Era similar.
There used to be a time in Ireland, though, Patrick, where if you were a husband that came home from work and the vicar's umbrella was outside the door, you weren't to enter because your wife was in confession.
And that was the same in Malta as well. Seriously,
Was
in
it?
yeah, my father was in Malta during the war. He's English. And throughout the island, it was known that if the walking stick was outside the house, the husband dare not venture in because the wife was in confession.
Yeah.
That's what they called it.
So there we go.
Oh, she's having a bit of confession, is she?
Yeah, confession. And I'll tell you something else. You're going to disbelieve me what I'm going to say now, but you can look this up on the internet. There's a place called Harlow. It's in Essex.
Yep.
And it has a Zelinsky Avenue and a Nelson Mandela Avenue as well. And let's put it this way, the council there is slightly more left than Chairman Mao.
Sad, isn't it? Isn't that sad? It is.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's tragic.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the pubic hair thing as well. Not that I want to sort of dwell on pubic hair, but it's a real insight into the mentality of the people that seek to take charge of our lives. They didn't think that this was wrong. There's an attitude that we are literally to be treated like cattle, and it's been here for a long time, and it certainly arrived in force with William the Conqueror, because that's where there was tremendous cruelty and vicious controls levelled at the Saxons after 1066. It's off the charts, and it's not talked about either. There's a thing called the Wuthering of the North, which is where I think the great North-South divide comes from psychologically or spiritually within this nation, because it was different before then. And there were areas of England that we're talking Yorkshire and Lancashire, Nottinghamshire, places like that. They came up, they killed everything, all animals, all people. There were parts of the land you could go 50 miles, and England's not big, right? You could go 50 miles and not see a living thing, not an animal or a human being. They killed and slaughtered everything. And it was to lay down their vicious rule. And we've not, I know it sounds really ridiculous to talk about an event that's nearly 1,000 years old, but it's major. These things don't change over, when you're a kid and you're 6 and then someone tells you that, it's just a joke. You can't possibly.
No, natural law doesn't change.
Our royals are Normans. They are British. We are English. There's a big difference between English and British. And what the other thing they didn't tell you is in battle in Sussex, they weren't allowed to bury the dead after the battle, and they left the carcasses there to rot, and what was left was buried 100 years later. The English were literally enslaved, and it was a close run thing at the Battle of Hastings, because what they don't tell you is the Scotch Irish and Welsh tribes came down to help the English because they knew that it was like a domino effect. Once the Normans were going to come in, they would then go on to Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. So this idea that the Scottish tribes and the English tribes were warring each other is not quite right. They did intermarry and they did trade with each other. It was the Romans that divided it, really. But this is the thing. We have Normans. You look at all these manor houses and that. You look at them, they're all of Norman heritage. Because they stole everything from the English. And it's the English that stopped slavery because English knew what slavery was about because we have been enslaved since 1066.
That's right.
The Cornish know all about slavery as well. I can tell you that for nothing because we were always targeted by the boat people down here.
What was the Doomsday Book all about?
The Doomsday Book was basically it was a list of wealth. Yeah, it was an inventory. Exactly, that's what it was. It was an inventory of wealth in Britain, and you had to pay tax for there are certain buildings close to me that are still listed, or still exist that were listed in the Domesday Book
in 1088.
In 1066.
No, 1068. And they stole everything. And I mean everything. And they introduced serfdom, which is because before the Normans arrived, there was no taxation and land ownership. If you wanted a plot of land and nobody claimed it, you can have that plot of land. And we were quite advanced society. Apparently there was universities and things like that. We weren't stupid idiots. And the Romans, we get our history of ancient Britons from the Romans, who looked on everybody that they, shall we say, occupied, every country occupied, the people as being primitive savages. We weren't primitive savages. That's another thing. We had a culture, a very rich culture, which went back years. And this is the problem. We get our information from the Romans, yes, and then from the Normans, because history is always written by the victor. That's why French history books have got so many blank pages. So it's a terrible joke. Yes, all your French listeners have now switched off. Sorry.
You see, the Normans are I don't know enough about them. I know a little. They are an interesting bunch, though, and it's to do with obviously they're Scandinavians that moved down to Brittany. That's what had happened. I don't know when they started moving down there. Maybe 500 AD, maybe earlier than that. I don't know.
Vikings.
Yeah, they were Vikings. But the reason they became known and associated with the excessive cruelties that they were rightly associated with when they took over these lands is that they were in a war against the Roman Church, Charlemagne. And I can't remember. It's not a battle as such. It was a slaughter, actually. There was a conflict between the creeping, rise of the Holy Roman Empire under Charlemagne and the Normans, and they'd been fighting a series of battles. But it was decided to actually have a parley and meet. And I need to look this up. I can't give you the name of it or even the year, but it's obviously before 1066. And about 5,000 Normans went along to this meeting and gladly did not take any weapons with them because as a sign of peace. This turned out to be the most colossal mistake that they had made because they were slaughtered. They were just completely cut down. And these are not nobodies, as it were. These are not low-level farm workers and people like that. These were the most intelligent and skilled people that they had. These were the natural leaders amongst them as a tribe. And I remember reading something along the lines of, after that event had happened, the remnant said, it was phrased like this, "Oh, that's how it's played, is it?" And from that point on, they just slaughtered because they'd been slaughtered.
What made them not take weapons, I wonder?
I'll have to get the proper account. I can't answer that right now, so I don't have it in front of me. But it was they were asked to do that, and then they were ambushed or something. Charlemagne just wiped them out. And they got very cross, and I think that made a big difference. So we do sort of traditionally over here associate Normans with excessive cruelty. And there's a lot of evidence, as Eric was suggesting, to that effect, that they would leave the bodies there for 100 years. I know after 1066, in and around East Sussex, which is obviously where battle the battle took place, hence the name of the battlefield now is known obviously as Battle. They wiped out just loads of villages. They just went and killed people. It's hard to understand exactly why they would do all these things, but I guess it's fear that they would rise up and come and have a go at them again.
So,
I mean,
there's a battlefield called Battle.
It became known as that.
The boats as well, and
Yeah.
you know
New
they
to me.
destroyed.
New to me.
They destroyed the landing boats so that the Normans that landed here couldn't get back to France. They did that deliberately, so they had to stay here. But then that tradition of ruthlessness carried on into the British Navy, and I'm not sure what century it was. I think it was the 18th. It could have been the 17th century. You would be shot if you was a captain for cowardice if you once showed that you were retreating. You had to go forward in your ship, so that they would actually shoot the captain.
Yeah, that still goes on in modern war.
Really?
To an extent, yeah. I mean, you hear stories in Ukraine about these soldiers being press ganged, and if they don't go to the front, they just shoot them, throw them in a ditch somewhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Trouble with war is it is propaganda, and that is the real proper. Was it the first casualty of war is truth? Now there was pictures of chaps being tied to lampposts with their trousers down and being humiliated. I don't know whether that's true or propaganda. I just don't know. If it's true, it's horrendous. If it's propaganda, well, we just don't know. That is the big problem. It's a bit like babies on bayonets in the First World War. We were told that the German army were marching through Belgium and placing Belgian babies on the ends of bayonets, and that got people really angry and wanted them to join the army.
Right. Attila the Hun.
That's right. People are stupid, and all they need is just a manufactured outrage where Russia is blamed on whatever, I don't know. Then they'll photograph a smouldering heap of something with a child's shoe on top, and the recruiting officers, well, there'll be queues going around the corner because people are stupid.
It's down to the fact that I think if you achieve an emotional response out of somebody, then you bypass all that learning and all that rational thought that they would normally put into place. That's the problem, isn't it? That's why war propaganda works so well. Which is why we never saw anything about Dresden in the UK until many, many years later.
Yeah, and all this hostage taking, the whole thing about the October 7th, and then they've got our hostages. So 44,000 dead bodies later. They still got our hostages. It's all about the hostages. It's just
but your government's held hostages since January the 6th when Biden got into office. You can't sit there on your high horse, mate.
Yeah.
Exo's asked.
I can. I didn't vote.
Yeah, that's true. You can.
Exo's asked an interesting. He said, "What event took place to stop English on English killing? Then I don't understand the question. Sorry, what are you getting at? Sorry. What event took place to stop English on English killing? Then what?
Well, we were doing quite a bit of that, weren't we, during the War of the Roses? There was a lot of English on English killing. I mean, the amount of killing that's taking place here is a lot. There's no
Civil War. That actually statistically, although millions got killed in the First and Second World Wars, statistically that wiped out more of the male population than almost any other war. Statistically, I'm talking about, not in great
numbers. You mean as a percentage of the overall population?
Percentage, yes, as a percentage of the population. Thanks for clearing that, Paul. But that's what I meant by percentage. I mean, after the First World War, there's lots of widows around and single women because they couldn't find a bloke. There's a shortage of men. After World War II, they said there's a shortage of men in Russia or the USSR as it was. I don't know. But statistically, the English Civil War culled statistically more men than the other wars. So that's the biggest cull of men statistically. There we go.
Fun, isn't it, round here?
What was the title of tonight's show? Just a little light-hearted chat?
I think it was Death, Clotted Cream and Death, I think was the subtitle I had for the
Clotted
show.
cream goes very well with death.
It does. Before you kill me, old chap, do you fancy sharing a scone and a bit of this clotted cream? Sure, I mean, that would bring peace everywhere, wouldn't it? I know. Let's just stop all this hacking each other to pieces. It's quite a thing. People really got very, very cross in the past. They were quite willing to just go and kill. I guess maybe because life was just massively tougher, much shorter. Maybe you got to the age of 30, thought I'll be dead at 35 anyway, sod it. I've had enough. People would just snap. Or were easy to sort of get into these forces, you know, to do these big killing events. It's quite a thing. I mean, when was the last battle that we had with the Scots? Is that Culloden, or is there something after that? I can't remember. And that's probably the 1700s. It's not that long ago, really.
Yeah. And they actually changed the angle of the rifles because the clans used to run forward with axes and God knows what, some pikes, and hack the English troops to bits. And a general noticed something, and what he did, he changed the angle of the rifles, and the tribes would just fall like 9 pins in front of them, just because he changed the geometry of how they shot, and it worked. And that was a huge. You know, that's how the English defeated the Scots by geometry. And as they said in the First World War, who was it now? Was it Wilfred Owen, the poet?
Yeah.
Said it was death by geometry. So the first one is death by. It's true, isn't it? Really?
Wow.
Is it true that the Scots have their national symbol as the thistle because it helped them defeat the British Army when the British Army were sneaking up to try and attack one of their encampments at night? They chose an encampment that was surrounded by thistles. This is what I've heard. Is that a truism?
No, it's the Saxons. It's creeping up on them, and a barefoot bloke stood on a thistle, went ah, and it gave the game away.
See, I love that story. That's just such a brilliant. No wonder you would totally have the thistle as your national emblem, wouldn't you?
Yeah, he had a bit of trouble. It's a bit like the Vikings, you know. They landed ashore, and one of them said, "Okay, let's rape all the men and kill all the women." And the other Viking said, "Oh, hang on, you got that, got that wrong way around." He said, "You play it your way, Ducky. I play it mine."
Do you know the last Cornish king that we had down here was killed for he was killed by his own people, his own court, for collaborating with the Vikings. King Donitz, his name was.
Really? What year is that? Roughly.
Oh, now you're asking a question. Tell you what, talk amongst yourselves. I'll find out for you in a few seconds.
Okay.
And did you know the last king of England? Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there. Sorry about that. Did you know the last king of England is buried just up the road to where I live, in Waltham Abbey? It's old Harold, because he looked up and they said, "Oi, mate, you got an arrow in your eye." He said, "Nah, it's just an eyelash. Let's carry on." So, but it was an arrow. That's the problem, So. Hey, look, Harold, look at these bleeding arrows. Where are they coming from?
We've got an awful lot of old things to sort out. It's a right old mess, the old history thing. It really is.
5th century.
5th.
King Doniot. Yeah,
okay.
5th century.
It's a little while back, that. Yeah.
Why hasn't there ever been a King Trevor and a Queen Tracy? That'd be good, wouldn't it? Queen Tracy and King Trevor. Here he comes, King Trevor, getting out his royal limousine. There's Queen Tracy with her beautiful painted nails there. There she's coming. There she is. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
It would certainly suit today's generation. Absolutely.
Yeah. Would it? I guess it might.
Well, unfortunately, I think it would not the clued up ones, but the ones that have just bought into the rectangle babysitter that they keep in their back pocket. Yeah.
Shall we move on to point number 5 on the Council on Foreign Relations? We can dip our toes back into the historical waters as you see fit. This is a bit boring, and we'll get on to number 4. It says number 5 is incumbent political parties take it on the chin. That's almost kind of interesting from the Council on Foreign Relations. Take what on the chin? It says, incumbents facing the voters in 2025 must be uneasy. 2024 began as the mother of all election years, it says here. Some 80 countries representing 4 billion people held either national, state or local elections. 2024 ended as the year of the challenger. Voters around the globe punished politicians in power, did they? Long dominant parties in India, Japan, South Africa and elsewhere went into their elections hoping to strengthen their hold on power. They instead lost seats and found themselves in coalition governments. In the jolly old United Kingdom and the United States, voters sent the incumbent parties packing. It's a funny way of phrasing it. And maybe in the States they did. Over here, we didn't send anybody packing. It's just a complete rigged load of crap as usual. French President Emmanuel Macron decision to call a snap parliamentary elections after rightist parties did well in the European parliamentary elections backfired and could cost him his presidency. It may even cost him his wife or creature or whatever it is that he's married to, that sort of abominational creature that's masquerading as a woman. Germany's ruling coalition crumbled after its constituent parties fared poorly. Blah, 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 blah. It's all a bit dull and dreary, really, so just business as usual, that one. So let's swiftly move on because I don't want to talk about their silly politics. Number 4. This is the one you've all been waiting for.
They're setting you up for the Antichrist there, Paul. They're setting you up for the Antichrist there. Look, everyone's lost faith in their governments. Everyone has, on a worldwide basis.
Yes.
We just need a knight in shining armor. We need Operation Trust to come riding in on its shiny horse with its shiny armor and win everyone over. And we're away. There you go. Boom. We've got the Antichrist.
That's what they're going to do. I can almost guarantee it, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, and people will be stupid enough to fall for it. Oh,
yeah,
it's
they're going to sort out
Mallificus.
all this nonsense. All this jab nonsense, all this LGBTQ nonsense and stuff. We'll sort out all the letters in the right order. Don't worry, folks. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah. Well, that's that element, that thread is in the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. That's exactly what they talk about. To destroy our faith in our worthy governments, ho, 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 to such a degree that they design the knight in shining armor protocol and people fall for it.
Yeah, we shall so wear down the goyim that they will beg to be our humble servants.
I mean, we're under globalist government right now, though. It's obviously, it's just masquerading as sort of showing an interest in national affairs. But the entire process, as we know for a long time, hundreds of years, has been to destroy all nations. And courtesy of AI now, I suppose, and the complete control of the information space, or certainly the major influence on it, they're able to convince people over 5-10 years or whatever of all sorts of nonsense and guff, such that they would go and vaccinate themselves and do all sorts of strange and odd things which are completely counterproductive to their own health, which is, how clever they are and how wasteful, cruel and murderous it all is. But then, they want to run the whole show. It's a pity. It's a bit of a hobby they've got there.
Take away my freedoms, but leave me my creature comforts. Don't take my mobile phone or my internet access.
Anyway,
sorry.
Do you fancy a laugh? Here's number 4. Let's move on to number 4. No, it's fine. Number 4, the climate continues to heat up. Good. What do you... Yeah, okay. Humanity. You remember humanity? I have no idea what that is. Humanity cannot say it did not know. What? Because I really want to run around saying I don't know. There's nothing to know. Scientists, didn't tell you which ones, scientists, experts, have been warning for decades that our addiction to fossil fuel, I'm not addicted to it, will change the climate potentially permanently. Well, they're plain wrong. The facts back them up. No, they don't. The level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere continues to grow, pointlessly and microscopically, and of no amount worthy of concern. This is me just throwing in ad-libs. And 2024, it says, will go down as the hottest year on record. Oh. It says it's here. It's on a sheet of paper. It must be true.
No, I love it.
Tell you what they're saying, experts say. It's always experts.
It is.
Experts say Yes.
Well, we just say that. Experts say on many radio shows that this is complete nonsense because we are experts. We're as expert as them. For the first time, it goes on, the average global temperature was 1.5 degrees C hotter than during pre-industrial times. A dangerous sign, given that the 2015 Paris Agreement seeks to keep the world from breaching that level permanently. Why? Who's bothered? It's the sun, you oafs. Some of the consequences of a changing climate are easy to see. You'll all be pleased to know they're easy to see, everybody. The U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, what a lovely title, reported that the first 10 months of 2024 produced 24 weather-related natural disasters in the United States that inflicted at least $1 billion in damage. Peanuts. Record drought has racked northern South America, causing parts of the Amazon, the world's largest river system, to dry up. But many of the consequences of climate change are hard to see because we haven't yet made them up. No, I just threw that bit in. Are hard to see because they involve incremental changes like the intrusion of ocean water into freshwater drinking sources that will become obvious only in time. COP29, what does that stand for? COP? Never mind. The annual International Conference on Climate made modest progress on helping developing countries to finance emissions reductions and climate adaptation, but not much else. Scientists made headway on a range of technologies designed to mitigate the effects of climate change and hasten the transition to a green economy. However, their successes may be a case of too little too late. Well, I wish I'd written that.
Yeah, I wish you had as well. It would have been a damn sight better, and it would have also included the fact that if just ban fizzy drinks, get rid of all that CO2 as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Watch all these fizzy drinks companies go out of business because that's all carbon dioxide, folks.
It's carbon dioxide. We're going to die. We're doomed because of CO2. It's just, I don't know. Somebody's actually said, I think I've got a chart. Is there a chart? Yeah, in the Telegram, the Paul English Chat Telegram group right now, the last post from Mark Anthony, thanks for this, Mark Anthony, if you hear this, is just one of these graphics that are very useful with regards to this nonsense. And it's a whole mass of squares. I'm sorry I don't know how to share images on this thing because I'm an oaf. Maybe I'll try and incorporate that to make 2025 this show graphically more interesting. But let me just read you out things. Nitrogen, this is composition of the atmosphere. Hope you have to take notes because there'll be an exam later on. It's very important. Nitrogen, 78.08%. Oxygen, 20.94%. So we're now at 99% practically. Argon, 0.93%. CO2 total, 0.04%. CO2 natural, 0.0384%. And CO2 made by humans, 0.0016%. And there's a wonderful graphic showing you just how microscopic that 0.0016% is of the entire grid. And it says the green square at the top right is the total CO2 contained in the Earth's atmosphere, which is 0.04% of the total. 0.384 blah, 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 blah. Is that produced by human activities? The white square. All of Europe contributes 16% of that little white quadrant, or 0.00256% of the total. So I thought they were trying to quote the science. Isn't that the science? It's just not the science that they like, is it? It's just not the science that they like.
The true science is right here in the Rumble chat room on the Paul English live show. Scientists warn that Earth could run out of conspiracies by 2025 if they keep coming true at the current rate.
Good one, Warren. Absolutely right.
Well done, Warren.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
That's it.
Yeah,
we need to run out of conspiracies. That's our goal. That's the perfect thing, is to run out of conspiracies.
Can you imagine in the First World War? I mean, Paul, you sent me an extract from a film that was really touching about the Christmas Day truce in the First World War. Can you imagine those poor souls in the trenches saying that in just over 100 years' time, they were going to stop cows from farting to save the they just wouldn't believe it. I mean, if they could have had a vision of what life is like today, I don't think any of them would have gone over the. What do you think? Do
No, they
have gone
wouldn't.
over the top? No.
They wouldn't have gone over the top. They'd have been like, we need to stay back and educate these people to not be so blooming stupid.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, it's
Do you want to
true
hear what
David
Klaus
Irving
has to
said.
say? Here's 21 seconds of Klaus.
So it is an awareness now generally, it's generally accepted that climate change, if we do not tackle with it, could be the next big, let's say, virus with much more damaging and long-term consequences compared to COVID-19.
You stupid, bald-headed git.
Sorry.
No,
I think
Shelley.
ultimately this whole CO2 thing with the cows and everything like that, lots of people are just thinking, you know, cows another form. But ultimately it's a hit at the farmers. In the whole Agenda 2030, stroke even 50 now, there will be no farmers and we will be eating pests and grains and all sorts of weird things in the next few years. So people, you know, just wanting to believe that it's the cows is just to get the farmers, really. Is that just obvious anyway? But...
Yes, that's obvious. And also, communists always go for the farmers because once you control the food, then you control the people. But
Well,
maybe the film Soylent Green was more closer to the truth than we realise. It was a visionary from what, early 70s of Soylent Green, where it turned out that people
Soylent
were...
Green is people.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a food that people were craving for. But really, it's true what George Carlin said. People are stupid. They really are stupid.
It's our biggest barrier, to be honest. It is, and I'm not claiming to be some kind of Einstein. Of course, anyone in the know would say, no, don't do that anyway.
Yes.
But it's our biggest barrier, really, is all the stupid people who won't. And you know, I know you all love your mobile phones and stuff, and I know that I kind of always bring this up, but it's just the whole carrying around your surveillance in your back pocket, people, all the time. You know, all right, some of the day do it, but all the time, it's one of the biggest degenerative forces on our planet at the moment, is that real need to be linked in, that quote unquote, Shelley, FOMO, fear of missing out.
I have it all the time.
Yeah.
You know I do. No, not just on my phone, but I love that.
No,
saying,
I know. Well, no, what you were talking about the other day was a different thing. So, but I'm quoting you, quote unquote. Yeah, the fear of missing out nowadays, not being part of the social circle, because the social circle has moved beyond who lives next door to you. No one's interested in who even lives on their road anymore. It's all in their back pocket, everywhere they go. And it's so people are just so easily manipulated on that basis, literally on that basis. It's like that, you know, it's the first rung of the ladder that everyone reaches for in the morning, or even before their cup of tea half the time. All right, I'm British. Cup of coffee.
No,
you know, whatever.
You are right. We were all stood waiting for a lift when we went out last night for Darren's birthday. Me, Darren, and Piran all stood here in the lounge on our phones waiting. And I said, look at us all here on our phones. Just got a minute to spare, nothing to say. Pull out your phone. It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah, it's bad.
Confessions, okay? Confession time. And I will, I will think more about it, really. You're right. You are right.
But
maybe we can't do anything. Maybe that's it.
Thing. Nobody mentions the word treason. Nobody mentions the word treason nowadays. And really, what we have in power are traitors. And what I'd like to start discussion is how are we going to bring those people to justice, and how will justice be served? Because Tony Blair amended the Treason and Sedition Act in 1997, and he changed it from death by hanging to a life imprisonment. But it's null and void because they can't change it. It's still, if you're guilty of treason, it's death by hanging. I'm against capital punishment personally because I don't think it proves anything. But the thing is that is still on the statute books because Blair could have meddled however much he wants. He was not allowed, he couldn't do it. So really, why is anybody talking about it? Why isn't people saying these people are traitors? They're going against us. What are we going to do with them?
How you can even write Tony Blair as the Middle Eastern peace envoy just boggles the mind for any sane thinking person. And how they can, this is no different to, as we were saying in the Rumble chat earlier, and as I mentioned on the show, it's no different to charging everyone for ultra low emission zones and then launching a shit ton of fireworks on New Year's Eve in that very zone. It's just rubbing people's face in it. That's all it is. Tony Blair, he's probably one of the most treasonous people in my lifetime. I suppose I could say it that way.
Churchill, I think, was probably.
He was dead by the time I wasn't born till 76. So.
You're very, very young.
When did he die?
I think.
No, well, you're young.
Yeah, all these young people, Eric. No, I'm just going to come back to I think the phone thing is a key part of it. Just picking on phones, because if everybody is kind of subdued, compliant with the addiction to the information space, which to a great degree is, it's brought a lot of benefits. It's also, the phone has never been my favorite tool anyway for using the internet. I do have one, and I've tried to look at what it is that I really use it for. And all I use, so maybe I'm completely done in by it. I don't know. I don't think so. I tend to use it for listening to podcasts when I'm walking. So I view it as a transistor radio in my pocket. But most of the time I'm working on big screens if I want to, which is maybe just as bad. I don't really know. But it's produced that kind of compliance. And we've mentioned it here before. We've discussed certain points and topics tonight, and we'll discuss more of them, and we'll keep on doing that. We're not alone in that. There's, a myriad of sort of outlets right now with people vocalizing genuine concerns and putting their finger right on it and all this, that, and the other. But we seem to be incapable of knowing quite what to do with the knowledge, how to apply it, what actions should we take. And to some degree, the kind of soporific stupor induced by phones is part of the process of reducing people's general volatility and aliveness. We were talking here, weren't we, about if you go back in this country 700 years ago, people got cross, they just picked up an axe. You better watch out. It's going to get resolved. I'm not standing for this at all. We've now got to a point where we are kind of conditioned to stand for everything. It'll all blow over, that kind of thing. And it's knowing how to introduce the really key nasty topics that people will view as nasty into their headspace so that they begin to get disturbed. Is it possible, I keep thinking, to disturb the vast majority of our own people if they are kind of somnambulic because of the induction of phones or whatever you want to call it? Is it possible to do it? How do we get to talk to people about remigration, for example? Is it possible to discuss that with people without them crying or shutting down or just simply sloping off out of the room, right, because they want to go and do something nice? If this is, if we're a people now that just literally target comfort and a lack of stress all the time, then it's not possible, it seems to me, with people in that condition to get them to defend themselves. I mean, they're not even aware that they're under attack half the time because they're arguing for the other side. So introducing the old ideas of racial separation, how do I get that one going? We can get it going here. We can talk about it. Most of the audience here are used to it. But is it possible to expand that conversation in such a way that people look at you and go, we really need to stop this. Yeah, we do. Do you actually care about your children and the possibility of grandchildren? If you don't, you're not going to do anything, right? If you don't have any children, the simple truth is, I've got to be brutal about this, you don't have a dog in the fight to the degree that people that do have children do. Unless you are one of those good people who look at your race as a whole and go, these are my people, goddammit. They are. I mean, everything that we've got, that we've enjoyed and that we've had to deal with and that we've had to endure, the bulk of it comes, whoever you are, whatever race you're in, because of the relations with your racial kith and kin. It's a great gift. And yet we're up against a system that's seeking, obviously, to destroy all of that. and there's no natural response to it. How do we get Peasants' Revolt 2.0 going? That's what I'm asking. I'm asking myself this all the time. What sentences should I use? How should I say them? Should I be dressed properly? Should I be a savage? Should I smell of beer? Do I give people free clotted cream? What is it that's going to get people? I know I'm being slightly flippant, but there's got to be something that galvanizes people, where they get back in touch with whatever little bit of fire they may think they have, because just being comfortable is not going to do it. Because it isn't doing it.
You've hit the nail on the head. You've hit the nail on the head. Absolutely, in the respect that, one of the things that I always say that you've got to get back in touch with, and it's a sad thing, I know, but I got a dog 2 years ago and I started walking it and stuff, and you bump into other people that have got dogs that live in the same village, and suddenly you bump into a whole load of people that you'd never bumped into before, and you get a cross section of the village that you live in. Wow, what a revelation.
Mm-hmm.
How lovely, in fact. And then you actually start to worry about what is occurring. There's one girl in the village, 23 years old. I worked with her years ago. A few years back, I left the company that I worked for because I wasn't allowed to work for them anymore because I wouldn't have my COVID jab. She stayed with them. She's in an operation in 3 days' time because they found a tumor right next to her heart.
Right.
I wouldn't be knowing this sort of stuff if I wasn't in and around the village and around. Look, there's no such thing as a tribe or a people. If you ain't a people, you're just sat in some central lobby, because that's what it is. When you're on your mobile phone, you're not in the room with them. You're just in a lobby. Mm-hmm. Waiting to be in a room with somebody, and you're just having a conversation while you're waiting, and that lobby has taken over everyone's lives. And there's another use for the word lobby too, and there's a reason for that.
Well, here again, it's like the parish, the idea of going to the main, to the church. You go there every week.
Everything should be set up in parishes. Yes,
right. But you're also with other people. It's more than just being isolated. You could be isolated the rest of the week, and then you have at least a place you can go to, even during the week for that matter. But there's that lack of the greater good other than yourself, your selfish interests, and looking out for it. Because there's a lot of people who that are politicians that claim to be looking out for the greater good, but they really are just looking out for themselves, and it's
well, I normally say, Patrick, that anyone telling you that they're looking out for the greater good, you should run in 180 degrees, either take them out or run in 180 degrees from their direction.
But at the same time, there is the reality of the greater good, which our laws are based on. Yes. And of course, the person that's a criminal is going to want to make believe that he's looking out for the greater good, and that what he's doing.
Your goodwill is always used against you.
Yeah. True.
No,
yeah, we need to be stronger.
Concept.
Go ahead, Paul.
The greater good concept is used as a weapon against the people. That is how you do something against the rights of one person for the greater good. It's bull. And I didn't use the second part of that word. The greater good is the problem.
Well done, sir.
I want to play you a little clip here. It's unfortunate. I haven't had a chance to take the music out of the back end. I hate these clips. They keep floating around on Telegram. And they've got good content. They put bloody mood music in the background. But it's about... this was forwarded through to the Paul English Telegram chat a few days ago. It came originally from Remigration Summit, and a guy featured in this is Martin Sellner from Austria. I don't know if you know about him. He's been locked up a few times. These are young guys, by young, late 20s, early 30s, it looks like to me. They're talking for a couple of minutes, and see if you can just get the gist of this. It's interesting.
Remigration. This word has become the hope of our entire continent.
It is the answer to the failures of multiculturalism.
It is our only chance to save our European civilization.
In 2024, this vision spread like wildfire throughout Europe and the Western world. From London to Berlin, to Paris, to Vienna, to Rome, to Lisbon, the peoples of Europe want only one thing: remigration by the millions.
A new generation is not afraid to say it out loud. Europe belongs to the Europeans.
Panicking, the globalists tried to prevent the awakening of consciousness without success.
But what does remigration mean? How can we organize to secure our continent's borders?
What does the patriotic youth of Europe want? How can we secure our home?
We need a plan, a manifestation of our political will, a summit.
Said and done. In 2025, we will organize the first European Remigration Summit. We will unite influencers, activists, politicians, academics, and make this dream of remigration a reality.
In May, we will meet in the heart of Europe to clarify what we mean by remigration.
We will establish the gold standard for remigration. We will present a bold vision that will shape the political debate and must become a reality in the 21st century. They will be going back by the millions, and Recent 25 will be the first step to ensure that.
Join us, follow us, and become a part of the solution.
One continent, one vision, one last chance. Remigration is inevitable.
So there you go, remigration. And they've got an event tomorrow somewhere online, I think on Twitter, which is part of it. But these are young guys, as you can probably tell from their voices, who want it back. I want it back. And it's going to require meeting up with some resistance, don't you think? But doesn't something have to be done? Is this, it's not as if I'm jumping all over it. Because
yes, we need a change of energy from a negative to a positive.
We absolutely do.
It's a training issue.
You're right. And also, looking back to look forward. And what I mean by that, now, as we said at the beginning of this show, I bought myself a fountain pen, and it's a fantastic fountain pen. It's what, $4.99. Couldn't really get cheaper. It's a Chinese one, and it is as good as, in my personal belief, a Parker pen. And it makes you write slowly. It makes you write better, and other things. You look at people now; they look like slaves. You look at China when Mao was in power. Everybody wore denims. They had to. Even the women wore denim trousers. Look around the high street now, you'd think that Mao Zedong was in power because everybody's in denims, everybody looks scruffy. There's very rarely someone that looks smart. Have you noticed that? I mean, everywhere you look. And the reason why, I think, is because people are depressed. They're being kicked down. They're made to feel like slaves. And this is what annoys me with these petitions, because we're saying, please, sir, can we have some more? No. We should look down upon the scum that's in power and say what they are. They're psychopaths. We don't want these psychopaths there. This is the thing. And I think it's a change of energy. That's what is necessary. How we get that change of energy, that's a small step in the right direction. But any further than that, I do not know.
It's absolutely attitudinal.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I'm completely with you, Eric. It's about attitude. It's about an ignited attitude that's got energy behind every sentence, that is communicated with energy so that others go, here is life. We want life our way. You have never asked us to do any of these things to Europe. We don't want any of them. We don't want you. We're literally in a war with the people that are pretending to govern our nations. There's no other way of describing it, because they keep doing things that they never ask our permission for, and we don't want them to do any of these things. And so we have to find a way of coming together. There is also a tremendously tantalizing and very positive thing about this. In the past, the populations of Europe have been pitted against one another in wars. If we can literally, using the technology, the communications technology of the day, circumvent that, so that it doesn't go through central control process, and we just, in a decentralized way, connect up with one another. We do know that all the people of Europe, the French, the Germans, the Brits, the Scots, everybody, the whole lot of us, We all actually really want this. But the vast majority of people daren't even talk about it, like I was saying a few moments ago. They daren't talk about it. It's getting them to talk about it. And maybe what is required for that is groups of people who speak with tremendous vigor and fire, which I could, but I don't want to go to prison just yet. And I'm sure you could too. And it's going to require that. Theatre is going to be required. Something that pushes through reason and rational logic and all the considered facts. That way we've got all the truth and all the facts, but it's not enough. What's needed is the bomb that goes off under people and they suddenly go, enough. It's that. That's what we see. It's not an intellectual process. It's a decision-making process. Do you value your own life? Do you want to participate in the outcome of your own life? Or do you want it to leave it to people who are pretending to help you while slowly killing you and your progeny off totally, which is what this is all about. And we all know why, or some of us know why. And this is an ancient thing.
Well, as I say, we need to ridicule them. The best way of they hate being ridiculed, and the best way of putting them down is to make fun of their stupid ideas, because most of them are.
Spot on. But I'll tell you something, we've got to watch out for what we were saying earlier about the phoenix rising from the ashes, because you've got people like the Nigel Farages of this world.
Oh dear.
Who tell people what they want to hear. And the
Donald
little
Trumps
Tommy Tuckers.
I wasn't supposed to be here, man. I wasn't supposed to be here. Yes, you were. It was ordained that you were going to be
That's right.
There.
They tell people what they want to hear and then go completely back on it. And there's loads of them like that. They're very clever.
The other problem, I think the other, you're bang on, Eric. And I think that the other problem that we got is that you've got to be very mindful of who, as I've probably said this far too many times as well, but you've got to be very mindful who's at the head of the cavalry charge when the revolution takes place, which is, which is what they're relying upon.
That's
really.
the thing, though. Do we want a revolution? I don't think we really do. I mean, revolution is a very bloody affair, and you don't want that. So the real question is, how can we do it peacefully, and yet at the same time get what is needed to create a peaceful civilization?
I think
the thing, and I think you need to get right with God at that point.
Well, I think the problem we've got.
Pubs anymore. Sorry.
No, Shelley, please.
Yeah, please.
No, I was just going to say, people used to meet regularly on a Friday after work, and they've taken away the pubs where people used to communicate. And people, they would sit down and they would discuss things and debate. And that's what we're really lacking now. If you knew, there was a bit like a gentleman's club in my village square on a Friday night, but open to ladies, obviously. But a regular thing where people could question things and debate things. It used to happen.
Well, they've taxed that. You're totally right, Shelley. They have taxed that into oblivion. I don't know many pubs. There's a pub in my own village. For a long time, the landlord that was there, he'd been there 42 years. He was Cornwall's longest standing landlord, and he eventually gave it up. And then, it's changed hands various times since. And the population of that pub is depleting. And I'm not surprised. Do you know, I'm not being funny. For the price of one beer, I could go home and get totally sloshed for the evening. So they've taxed it into oblivion.
Yeah, and they've given it to all of the big companies, Weatherspoons and stuff like that. The, big chains. It's saying goodbye to everything, isn't it? All the local butchers, everything. Yeah. The butchers, the barbers. Yeah. And they're replacing all of our local barbers with,
You see, on a sort of really simple one-to-one level, I find, I do meet up with people every couple of weeks. And I also want to meet up with a younger crowd as well. If they hear this, they can all start laughing. And what I mean by that is it's necessary to meet up with people across the generations. It really is. I have two sons, right? And there's a punchy side of me that's just insanely stupid and won't go anywhere. I accept it. I have to keep it in check. But there is. Verbally, I'm very punchy at times. I just really want to say things that are actually offensive. I've got this great urge to just literally be offensive for no logical reason whatsoever other than to stir it up. The problem is that people get stirred momentarily and they just go back to sleep again. However, if I meet up with one or two people that are on fire and I'm sure this is the same for you, that are on a similar wavelength, that's all it takes. It is literally all it takes, because you become your own ball of fire, and it's lots of little cluster groups that are needed. You see, the thing is, you're right, Shelley, in a way, but all those chats in pubs didn't produce anything either, because there's no actual focus on what the real problem is and how to maintain it. It's great to get out and get revved up, and if that's all we can do, we should definitely do that. But there's something else is absolutely required. And it's something right in the very heart of people. They've got to want their own people to thrive more than anything else in the world, more than their own welfare, more than your own life. It's the most important thing, because everything that we've got, we've kind of been given, which is wonderful. And I'd like to be in a position that we as a generation could give back to the generations that are going to follow. One of the things that we have to try and help them get back is their own brains, because they've been hijacked by all this guff. So I don't think this is an insurmountable problem at all. And even if we weren't to achieve it, the thing is, between now and whenever we all shuffle off this mortal coil, the more energy we put in, the more focus, the more fire we can muster and combine with others, the better. Wat Tyler had to start somewhere, right? Those guys started somewhere and they just went, enough. And something snapped in them as a group. All right, 700 years ago, 650 years ago, things were very, very different. People were just physically tougher. They weren't going to live as long. They were compelled, they were impelled to act because there's no other choice. Now, they've learned a lot about that, and they keep us almost like soporifically stupefied. There's a comment here from Aunt Sally. She says, I was in Tesco earlier. Our people are mostly fat and in terrible shape. This is unfortunately true. It is unfortunate. It's true. They are. They're fat. They're in terrible shape. The fat bodies have produced fat-headedness. There's very little verbal vigor in people. Not enough. Anyway, let's put it that way. Not real spit.
There was a reason in World War One why they sent all the intelligentsia to war. And the same thing happened again in World War Two.
Yeah.
We lost the cream. The cream of the nations were lost. We're just literally.
So you're just left with all the dull scrounging oiks, really. That's what they wanted, isn't it?
I guess it is. Yeah, if you want to introduce communism, you need to have a herd mentality. It's the best way to get it. But I think there's something in the land, you see, in the air here, when you can get a bit of it, and the sunshine, Eric, when we can see the sun, that can grow good people again. I've got to believe that, even if it's not true. I choose to believe it, even if I've got no evidence for it. Myth and the power of our history, if known, of course, can be an extremely galvanizing effect. Of course, some people are just not affected at all. They just don't care. They're just thinking about here and now.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut it.
No, it's fine.
Paul, carry on, sorry.
No, I'm finished.
Nature is on the outside. I was thinking of this the other day. Communism goes against nature. Nature always has its revenge. Every communist setup has been a complete and utter failure. And it never will be a success because it goes against nature. So maybe nature is on our side, because I've been thinking for a long time, something might happen that none of us could have imagined would happen, that might change things in our favour. And that's what I strongly believe. I mean, look what happened with Ireland. Napoleon was going to invade Ireland, and a storm came up and stopped the invasion. Look what happened with the Spanish, what do you call it?
Armada.
Armada, thanks. The storm came up and smashed the Armada fleet up. Now, they didn't expect that to happen. I think something unexpected will happen, because it can't go on like this, because we're going against nature. These soppy windmills all over the place, solar panels. Nature will have its revenge. I'm positive it will. So, and it works in all different ways as well. Because, look when the Berlin Wall came down. Well, we knew that communism, what happened, it moved from the east to the west. That's what the Berlin Wall was coming down with. But something, as I say, I've just got that feeling. I don't know if anybody else has got that feeling. I'll leave that open to everybody.
I've had a couple of emails recently talking about how a lot of the cycles occur in 80-year spans, and so that now this year would be the reverse of what occurred in 1945, or the beginnings of. Just a theory. I'm not upholding it. It's just I've had a couple of emails stating that. So that's just my 2 pence worth, old boy. Sorry.
Interesting. That's very interesting. But when you look at, like, I mean, for example, the BBC, who on earth watches the BBC now? I mean, I actually feel physically sick if I
Yeah,
haven't
I
got a
do.
telly.
I
If I
actually
go,
do, Eric. I feel sick watching.
Yeah.
I have to turn these things off. You can just see what they're doing. The thing that perplexes me is perplex the right word? It's probably giving them a bit more kudos than they deserve. The people that create these programs, if create's the right word, what is in between their ears? Is there anything? It's like maybe it's just all AI. It's almost impossible. I watched, obviously, or I looked at the schedule for the BBC over the Christmas period. I ended up watching old films on YouTube and stuff, which is all I do. I love the old films. They inspire me because, as I've said before, there are men in suits and women behaving and communicating clearly. And the plots to me are now really interesting because they're about real human beings. And it's wonderful to watch something that hasn't got a bloody spaceship or an explosion in it. It's so tedious what they're coming up with. It's really, really rubbish. And I've also got drawn into looking at westerns. I mentioned this before. Not that I was a fan of westerns when I was young, but I'm kind of intrigued because they're so slow and nothing happens that I quite like that. I like things where nothing's happening at all. They're just sat on their horse or something and they're going along really slowly. And it's all very, very slow. The pacing of those stories is much slower than the modern things. And it's like, pay attention to the plight of these people. When you start to think about it and what's going on, they're facing great challenges in these stories, and you either decide to fall into that, which I think is worth doing, just get completely consumed by the world for an hour and a half and then come out of it again because it's refreshing, particularly if there's a good moral tale. And in nearly all the old films, there is. And these things are worth paying attention to. But some of the fare that the BBC were putting out, you don't know where to begin. The caliber of the people that are doing the communicating, what am I supposed to say? They're a joke. Yeah, they're a joke. They're feeble. Yes. And yet they imagine themselves to be the sort of communicators of something really, really powerful and effective. And it just plain isn't. And it's so trite and meaningless. They're even still showing Morecambe and Wise reruns from 50 years ago, and they're still probably the best thing on the TV. I mean, not that I watch TV much. I just saw that they were on.
They don't show much Dave Allen, I would imagine.
No, they don't. They don't show much Dave Allen, no. Although I have recorded the best of Benny Hill, which was on one of these obscure, I'm serious, 2.5 hours. I hope it's absolutely toe-curlingly politically incorrect. That's the only reason I recorded it.
Yeah, of course it will be.
That's all I want. All I'm interested in, particularly slapping bald men on their heads and insulting Chinamen. It's just hilarious. And this is all we want. And, why can't we send up the bigots? Why can't BBC send for Bigots Broadcasting Corporation? We just get back to the good old ways of just insulting everybody. If you don't like it, bugger off. Bugger off anyway, actually. In fact, if you bugger off, we won't insult you anymore. How about that?
Well, look at Spike Milligan. I mean, he was brilliant. Nutty's a fruitcake, but there's no eccentrics on television.
Yeah, he was awesome. I loved the fact that he got given some award. It was like a golden handshake from the BBC years after he'd even had a career with them. And Prince Charles had taken now King Charles, had taken the time to write a note that had to be read out by Jonathan Wass. And after partway through him reading it out, Spike Milligan turned around and went, "Groveling bastard." And of course it had the whole audience in stitches because he just insulted royalty, etc., etc. You guys, anyone listening can go look that up on YouTube. It's hilarious. But anyone that went through what that poor chap had to go through, he completely lost the plot in World War II, didn't he?
That's
right. He was fighting in the desert with Monty's armies.
That's right. Yes. And the thing was that he had a nervous breakdown, didn't he, in the 60s?
He did, yeah.
And but I mean, I've got a lot of Spike Milligan's books with silly verse and things like that. I mean, some of them. Was it Maverick Prowse had rumbling bells that thundered through the night? It shook the bedrooms all around and gave the folks a fright. The doctor called. He was applauded when through his stethoscope heard the sound of bang hounds and smelt the archery smell of smoke. Is there a cure? The higher the fewer, the learned doctor said. Then stood poor Maverick upside down and stood him on his head. And so, my friends, this is the end, a warning to the few. Beware of doctors till the end, or they'll get rid of you. And I did that completely from memory. I remembered that when I was a
well
kid.
done, you, sir.
Yeah, I like
Round of
that.
applause.
Thank you.
Well done, sir. That was excellent.
I actually learnt that, and I think I said it at school, and I don't think my teachers were amused.
He was. I'm not being funny though. Spike Milligan was one of those guys. He'd almost perfectly lost the plot in the fact that he really bit at the heels of reality. Do you know what I mean? In many respects, in all his writings and everything. And I've read the book Monty, his part in my victory, or something like that.
No, it's Adolf Hitler. His part in my downfall.
Yes, that's right. But I always remember there was a photograph in there with his father, while they were wherever they were when he was a kid in Africa somewhere.
India,
his father had a pistol in his hand and it had a caption underneath saying, "Dad shooting a couple of wogs before breakfast."
Oh, I like that. That's my kind of book. I need that. The Spike Milligan
I'm not
poem I
meaning that
know.
in a derogatory way. I'm just saying you were allowed to print that sort of thing. back then.
No, all fair.
Do you know what a wog is? Seriously.
A worker
It
on
is
government service, surely.
Correct. In Egypt.
Yes.
And they made
Yeah.
dolls with WOGS on them. And the British troops in Egypt brought them back to there. And this is why you got the gollywogs. No,
Yeah.
there's nothing to do with African people at all. It's Egyptians.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. And, well, yeah, I mean,
apparently
you could go.
black material was cheap, so the Egyptians, being enterprising, used the cheapest material, which was black. Hence they were black. They could have been white if the white was cheaper. So, sorry, I cut in on you there.
No, that's fine. No, I think actually you summed that up rather well. So that's fine.
The one Milligan thing I know that's brief is clouds have holes where the rain comes in. The holes are small. That's why rain's thin. There we go. That's a Milligan one.
Yeah.
Edith Prowl was 32 when she went out of doors. She went out standing up, she did, but came back on all fours. Was it the reason for this learned story is never send a baby out with loosely weighted drawers. Sorry, it's a terrible note. I've read all his books. I don't think my teachers were very pleased with me because there's children sort of standing up, quoting Shakespeare. What have you learned? Oh, I've learned Spike Milligan.
Spike Milligan. He was far more astute and on point. Yeah.
Well,
although I have to say, Shakespeare was well on point when he said the whole world's a stage and all those upon it.
Yeah.
And going back to the whole Putin and the banking and the yada yada yada. You know what I'm.
But was it Shakespeare? This is the question. You see.
Was it Shakespeare or was it not Shakespeare? To be or not to be? I don't know.
That's the question.
That is the question.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
it was a franchise.
No. Well, no, they reckon it might have been Bacon, a bloke called Bacon.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been anybody, but they reckon John Hamer. I spoke to him about it. And he went through it, and it wasn't Bacon; it was some other chap. I can't remember now, but he said that Shakespeare was basically illiterate. His parents, and he'd never been to Venice or Italy in his life.
It's a bit like the shooter at Port Alfred, wasn't it? Was it Port Arthur? A bit like the shooter at Port Arthur.
Really,
completely illiterate, couldn't really do much, could barely even hold a rifle. Amazing.
Oh, yes.
Amazing how that stuff goes on and laws get brought into force afterwards.
Oh, crumbs, that is. It's a bit like Lee Harvey Oswald.
Since as we're touching on the subject.
Yes, I mean, did he shoot Kennedy? Well, no, because they've actually set up the exactly space where at the book depository where he was actually having his lunch at the time. and they got one of the top. I said this the other week. Was it sharpshooters? And he got one shot in, and he missed. So,
well, I think Bill Hicks's description was the best. You can still go there now. It's called the Assassination Museum, and there's a little rope across the doorway because you can't go in there because everything is as it was when Oswald was in there. I mean, like Oswald isn't there.
Yeah. It's true, yeah. Very true.
Well, the way I heard it, there were teams. There were teams of there were at least 30 people involved in triangulate. Three teams triangulating to shoot him when that happened. According to what I heard from John Barber, and he had forget the guy's name now.
Was there not a guy waiting in the
one who that movie JFK by Oliver Stone is based on? The reporter down in New Orleans, or the attorney. I'm trying to think of his name now. But they really discredited him big time. And I think it was during Jimmy Carter, his term, when they came out with a lot of that stuff about MK Ultra and the assassination team, how they would come up with these people to go and assassinate world leaders over in other countries through the CIA, because that's a lot of what they did was regime change.
Yeah, man, a lot of the MK Ultra stuff is so interesting. The use of LSD and the use of LSD in a sort of commune as well. That was a really, the whole Charles Manson thing and all that kind of stuff. When you realize that all these people that were visiting drug clinics were all visiting the same experts, and that we're all employed by essentially US government folks. Yeah.
Coming back to Shakespeare.
Yes.
Billy Silver's just written the 17th Earl of Oxford, and I'm with Billy on this one. Edward de Vere. And I've just discovered something which I didn't know, which is another person lost
Jim
to us.
Garrison says excellent.
No, it's really though I thought this man was still alive. Alexander Waugh, Alexander Evelyn Michael Waugh was an English writer, critic, and journalist. Among other books, he wrote Fathers and Sons, blah, 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 blah. He was an advocate of the Oxfordian theory, which holds that Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, was the real author of the works of William Shakespeare. And I've just sadly discovered, because he's got a lot of YouTube videos, that he passed away last year in July at the mere age of 60. And his parents were Oberon Waugh. You may remember him, very well spoken. He was connected with Private Eye. His relatives, Daisy Waugh, his sister. Evelyn Waugh was his grandfather. So he came from a long line. Anyway, I would suggest
you wrote a lot about World War II.
Yeah.
Evelyn Waugh.
Evelyn did. But Alexander, I thought he was still alive, so I'm a bit sad to have just read that. I was hoping to even get him on the show.
Yeah, I had heard him with James Dellingpole not that long ago. Over the years, actually. He's been on a couple times.
Yeah, he's very well spoken, very easy to listen to, and it's extremely thorough, and there are a lot of videos about it. And De Vere's life puts him in a position to have known all this knowledge that goes into the plays. Basically, he was extremely well educated and well travelled and well connected. That's just it in general terms. Anyway, there we go. I just thought I would throw that one in. We're moving towards the close of this first show of 2025, and this loose, fun, clotted cream show, which has been really good. Anybody got any sort of... I was going to try and finish off on... Let's just see what these final little comments are from the Council on Foreign Relations. I don't want to dwell on this. Number 3 is upheaval in the Middle East. That's after all the fun with... Well, forget that. Yeah, it's always... It's going to be the same like that every year.
Go figure.
Number 2 was the rise of the axis of autocracies. The return of geopolitical competition is evident in the growing cooperation between China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. Their collaboration has been called the axis of autocracies, has it now? The axis of upheaval, and the quartet of chaos. I wonder who named them that, among other names. Probably some greengrocer from Bolton with a vivid imagination. The alignment falls far short of an alliance, and it is debatable whether axis is the best description. It didn't stop you using it, did it? Anyway, blah, 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 blah. That goes on for a bit.
You're bang on there, honestly.
Yeah, they say these things. They sort of
It's just so transparent. Don't you just get? Do you not read through these headlines sometimes, or these statements sometimes, and just think, "Oh God, not this drivel again! Really? Honestly?"
Oh, listen to this. This is a closing bit.
I'm weary of it.
Here's fun. It says the 4 countries have conflicting interests and no shared vision of the world they hope to create. Okay. But they do. Here's the kicker. But they do agree on one thing. They want to diminish US power in world affairs, and therefore they're incredibly evil. The challenge for the United States and its allies is how to respond. War! Sorry, that's just me. A hardline approach could produce a self-fulfilling prophecy, while downplaying the threat could enable it to grow. Well, blather then. Anyway, that was number 2. So number 1 is probably the number 1 that you would expect, I guess, which is the most important thing, they say, the biggest trend or whatever, the big event of 2024 was Donald Trump wins the US presidential election. So there we go.
Whoop-de-doo.
That's very, very important.
After he was shot in the ear and everything.
I know.
I still think Lassie would make a better job of it.
Yeah.
You think if they had people like dogs,
Lassie.
he doesn't do a pee up. As long as they don't do a pee on the rostrum, it should be all right, or mount another dog.
Let's face it, Lassie could convey in a few barks what he has to take a half-hour speech for.
Yeah, it'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
Let me read you just a bit of the drivel. It's not too long. It just says Trump's defeat of Harris in 2024 will go down as the greatest political comeback in US history. Well, there you go. In the wake of the January the 6th Capitol Hill riot, completely bogus and organised and totally hilarious nonsense, that even senior members of the Republican Party said he was morally responsible for, as if they would know anything about moral responsibility. Hilarious. Trump's political obituary seemed written. Oh, it's so grandiose and dramatic, this, isn't it? His comeback owed to his unique appeal to Republican-based voters, public dissatisfaction with the economy and illegal immigration, and Joe Biden's spastic brain. No, I just threw that in at the end. Sorry, it doesn't say that. And Joe Biden's No, but if I was writing it, bloody would. And Joe Biden's low public approval
He's sharp
ratings.
as a tack.
Yeah, what kind of attack, though? Yeah, he is. Is he sharp as a tack? Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Biden dropped his trousers. No, Biden dropped out of the race in July after a disastrous debate in which it was discovered his brain had been inserted in his head the wrong way round. Blah, 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 for another 4 years in office. Democrats rallied around Harris, did they? And she was widely regarded as having beaten Trump in their one presidential debate. Really? It's just fantastic fiction.
He went off on the Haitians eating the dogs and eating the cats.
Oh, right. Are they still doing that? Are they still eating your dogs and cats? What's going on? They're still doing that?
Barbecue. I don't know. Eric got in trouble for saying a joke about that the other day. What was that about, Eric? Something about the dog for Christmas?
Oh, yes. Somebody got very upset about it because I said, remember the old Chinese saying, a dog is not just for Christmas. With little care, some can be left over for sandwiches in the new year. And someone said I was a sick bastard. Really took it seriously.
There are people on British radio stations eating dogs. I am outraged.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that really what's going on? Yeah. Yours, furious of this parish. Yeah.
It's not just the Haitians. It must be an island thing, huh?
Yeah. But it's a bit like in the 1950s. I've probably said this before. I have actually. In the 1950s, when we had BBC and people speak very Welsh like this. There was this is 100% true because I spoke to several people that heard it. On the radio, they used to have a vicar and some ladies on each week, And prior to coming on the radio, the vicar impaled his finger on a thorn of a rose. I think someone knows what's coming up here. And this came over the air. The woman said, "How's your prick, vicar?" He said, "Oh, it's still throbbing." And fucking classmates were on the floor crying with laughter. And it went over live. But the funniest thing is we used to have American Forces Network in its country. I don't think they do it anymore.
Yeah.
And there was one in Essex, and again, I've heard several people tell me about this, and they used to. It's quite good actually. Collect money for not charity, but if a little child wanted a wheelchair or something, they'd get a wheelchair, or they'd toys and things like that. The American Air Force was pretty good like that. And one year they had, it was before Christmas, they had this thing where people would pay for them to play a record, you see. And there was one record called "Crying" by some bloke or other in the 50s. And it went up, we go over to Colonel Dwight and aircraft fitter Fred or whatever. He's going to pay $6 to have this record played. And suddenly there's a hell of a rumpus in the studio, and it's the camp commander coming. And he said, "Give me that microphone." He grabs the microphone and said, "That was my wife's favorite record, and she's just run off with my best friend. I'll pay $100 for that bloody record not to be played." And then slammed the record, and they walked out. And apparently that actually happened. Yeah,
Wow.
So, yeah. But that was all. That must have been late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah.
So that's how that happened. But
well, ladies and gentlemen, we're towards the end of the show. We have about 5 minutes to go. So I was going to play it with a song. We've played this one before. But any final words? Quick round the houses. Any closing comments? Everybody giddily looking forward to 2025 and our great comeback, the Western Christian European people? Or are we going to be hunkering down for a bit longer yet? I suspect the latter, but who knows?
I'm looking forward to a good year, even though I can't remember the last year very well, what it was all about. But I hope the future year is good for everyone here, and thank you all for the company and good cheer.
Brilliant, Patrick. Yeah, let's have a crack in.
You're always so positive, aren't you? You are.
Well, I don't know.
You've always got such lovely things to say. So good. Happy New Year, everybody. Have a blast. This is the year. Sound like I mean it?
Yes, it does. Sounds like you mean it. It sounds like you meant something.
I'm not sure it does. I'm not sure I believe that as a genuine statement, Shelley.
No, I do. It hasn't done a lot for me, the new year. I don't get excited about it or anything. I'm just, I'm kind of like, bring it on, but it's just another day, isn't it?
Well, the days are getting longer. That's something to be excited about.
That is something to be excited about. You're right.
It is.
Well, look, and the
spring
new
is
year
coming.
is the 1st of April. Seriously, it's Pope Gregory that changed it. It used to be the end of the year was March the 31st, and the New Year's Day was April the 1st. That's how it used to be, and then the Pope changed it. Pope Gregory, I think it was.
Yeah, well, in Persia and Iran, it's the New Year when April 1st, around that time, March 1st. So the spring equinox. I think they call it Nowruz.
Well, we can celebrate it properly then on April Fool's Day.
Why not?
Yeah, we can.
Let's just do it again. I don't care. So as long as somebody remembers, let's do it properly. It seems more in keeping. April means the arrival, doesn't it, or something, or the advent of things, which is in keeping with all that. March being the final month of them all.
March, what it would be, March 21st is the equinox.
That's right. As in September being the 7th month, and October being the 8th, November being the 9th, December being the 10th month, January, therefore, being the 11th, February the 12th, and March, troublemaking 13th month, I suppose, something like that. So there we go.
It's on a Tuesday. It's on a Tuesday, so we could do something. But I wish everybody, I hope that the old British or English sense of humour is restored this year, and we have a bloody good laugh at all these twats in power. And I think we should start off by when we see Keir Starmer and all these plonkers just whistle the Laurel and Hardy tune, and just take the mickey out. Imagine them coming out at number 10. Everybody's whistling the Laurel and Hardy tune, and shouting out things like, "Bet your mum, bet your mummy's
they will die when we ridicule." That's the point, isn't it? And other than that, do the best you can with what you have.
Yeah.
Please, people, just ditch your mobile phone for just like half of the week.
Swap it for clotted cream. Swap the phone for clotted cream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it in your soup, put it in your pasties, put it in whatever you want. Yeah.
It's going to be great. Wonderful.
Lots of love. Thank you so much for inviting me on, Paul.
Well, it's been great having you, Mallificus, and you too, Shelley, and hopefully we'll have you back again multiple times throughout the year, which would be fantastic. And also, although this is by no means definite, I've still got this idea of the Fockham Hall Festival sometime in the summer running around in my head. And if we can get together with Farmer Mike, the bowler-hatted farmer, and several other things, and we could logistically come up with a plan that suited most people's itinerary, that could be fun. Even if it was just to get together for 10 minutes in the field in Barnsley or something would be great. No, it wouldn't. I think we'd need a little bit more than that. But
it'd be great, wouldn't it? Steampunk. We could base it on steampunk. You know, where we sort of walk around.
I think it's just getting together, shaking people's hands, slapping each other on the back, and trying to nick their clotted cream. And I think that would make for a good day out and lots of fun. So brilliant. Okay, well, thanks everyone. Thank you, Paul, as well. You're a bit quiet there, but Paul, thank you very much over on the other side of the pond, and Patrick and Shelley and Mallificus and of course Eric. I'm going to play out with Sing 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 by Benny Goodman because it's 5 minutes long and it's lots of fun and it's a nice bouncy little tune. We've played this several months ago, but we're going to do that. To everybody in the Rumble chat, thank you very much for being here with us this evening. I wish you all a prosperous, productive, tremendous and rather fighty 2025 if you can find it in you. And let's keep talking things up and seeing what we can do to connect. And hopefully, maybe, if it's more than just a sort of vague idea, this little festival, or whatever we want to call it, later on in the year will come about, and it could be really rather marvellous, I think. So let's look at doing something like that. Very loose and informal, of course, as it is. So have a wonderful week. We'll be back again next Thursday, and here's Benny Goodman.